We were feeling bad for Tony, but now we do Brad.
Nope, all my questions. Dang it.
Are we?
Oh, it's 6 o'clock.
All right.
Lindsay, does this one need to be on? I had muted it before, but I'll
It looks
unmute
good
it.
now, but that's not what it normally looks.
Yeah.
I see we started.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the November 20th, 2023 regular meeting of the Lyman Select Board. This meeting is a public proceeding and is being recorded. Would you all please join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My brakes are on. Hang on, here we go.
Yeah. Got one?
Oh, here's one. Yeah, you're welcome.
It's like a Band-Aid in hospital, will charge you $30 for that.
Yeah. Take that off the bill.
You can rent it for you. Just want to make sure they're all set. A lot of crazy stuff.
I'm not used to Teams, sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to- Yeah, I guess he did have something to do. Gee.
Oh, here's way back in the book. Yeah. 6, backside.
Oh. No.
No.
Oh, he must have put, no, it's under committee reports, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
Not with it. Hi, Michelle. How you doing? Technical difficulties. Let's see what she wants to do.
Maybe that's his.
That's wicked cool.
Okay, so this is his. Okay. So cool. Maybe yours.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Let's jump in.
Hi,
Okay,
ready?
yep, move on. The assessor has a presentation.
Okay, so at the last property tax school that I went to, experienced assessors stood up and kind of shared different topics that would be of interest and make assessors better in their job and day to day. This was one of them, aerial photography, which is kind of like a Google Earth where you fly over, but it's much clearer. It's done when there is no foliage, there's leaves down, so you get a very good kind of like direct down like an ortho view, and then an oblique view also can go through different sides of the building. So it's good for assessor work. It's also good for code enforcement. It could be good for the roads, any kind of projects in town. It could be good for public safety, where 911 dispatchers could actually pull it up, and in the event of an emergency and 911 it has to get there, they could kind of see access points, especially if it's through the woods or something like that. Where's the door to the house? Where's the easiest way to get to it? Stuff like that. I kind of gave you a packet of info. I don't know if you had any time to review all the benefits and how each packet actually goes over the different benefits. It's just to get basically a clearer view of backlot parcels. Some are going down dirt roads for a mile or more before you get there. Some are no trespassing. You can do different kinds of measuring. Year-to-year changes with gravel pits could be observed. Any kind of shoreline zoning where they're cutting trees down year to year could be measured for the code enforcement officer. Any kind of property encroachments. Sometimes it's better to look down aerial view than ground level. Kind of hard to tell sometimes. So it has a lot of different features that it could help us with. Catching up on past permits, like what is something done? Is a demo totally demoed? Do we have to get in the car and go out there to see, or could we just pull it up on this aerial imagery and be able to tell in minutes? So in a way, it saves expenses because staff time is an expense for the town. So if we take less time to do something, it's less expense in that area. It could integrate with any kind of GIS mapping that we already have, and which we do have like a parcel overlay that Jim Thomas worked on for us. So it could kind of be like a Google Earth parcel overlay, but again, much clearer imagery than Google Earth can provide. Bar Harbor recently used their Eagle View imagery. This is what I mean by like a town project. They wanted to institute parking meters, so they were able to get an aerial view of the town, look down, measure distances, how many parking spaces were in an area. So it cut down on the staff time of preparing the specs and the project, kind of like description of the project and what was needed. They were able to get a lot more information in a lot less time, and very, very accurate. They offer different products like Change Finder, where if we have aerial views year to year, we could compare what was different that maybe we missed, especially when there's vacancies in departments. There's a staff shortage, or there's somebody's out of a department for a while, and the communication breaks down. You could always go back and see what was there compared to what's there now. They offer a building overlay option that will give you the sketch out, and it'll actually alert you to what structure is there this year that wasn't there last year. So it aids in capturing stuff. It's like almost like a replacement of a human being in a way, but a lot quicker. If there ever was any kind of a natural disaster, like FEMA qualified natural disaster type thing, they would fly out over the town and be able to assess our damage a lot easier. We'd be able to assess the damage of that disaster a lot easier with the aerial photographs. So I did give you, like I said, the packet and a couple of links to a couple of videos that were a couple minutes long that maybe if you had time, you hit on the videos and you were able to see. This is John. Is he still there?
JG?
And he is going
Yes,
to chime
hello,
in
everyone.
and
Everyone
give a
can hear me okay?
presentation.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, great. Well, thank you. I got to bring Lori on all my demonstrations with me. She kind of hit on all the key points. Thank you, Lori.
Okay.
And thank you, everyone, for allowing me to speak today and kind of educate you on our software and just the technology in general. My plan is to kind of hit on a few things that, Lori can use it for, but, my main plan today is to kind of show you what what other departments can use it for as well. Because our goal at Eagle View is to kind of really train and get the most out of the technology for all the departments, right? So that's 911, emergency management, first responders, code enforcement, of course. But the technology and the use cases are kind of limitless, right? So the thought process is, you can do most of the work at your desktop. It's not totally alleviating having to go to the field, but there's certainly many scenarios where it can help you working from your desktop. So I'm going to share a presentation. In the interest of time, I'm kind of going to go through some of the slides quickly, but feel free to stop me and ask any questions along the way. I'm happy to answer any of them. And really, I work, just to kind of give you a brief introduction of myself. My name is John Gannon. I'm the district sales manager for Eagle View. I cover New York and New England. And I work with all shapes and sizes from towns to states, right? We contract with the state of New York, the state of Rhode Island, the state of Massachusetts, and we also contract with many, many, many towns, a few of them within Maine. So I understand everyone's need for this technology is different, right? So, kind of think of us as not only the technology, the software, flying over, getting the imagery, but we're also consultants, right? So we want to help guide you in any way we can, really. So I'm going to share my screen. So let's just make sure you guys can see that okay. Everyone can see that?
Yep.
My screen? Great. Okay. Well, we're not going to go through introductions because I think that would take up all the time, right? So I'll kind of rely on Lori to pass information along to everyone and my contact information. I'm happy to answer questions today and at any other time as well. So feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call, whatever you like. I'll go into a little bit about what Eagle View is and their history. So we're out of Rochester, New York. I'm actually located in Buffalo, New York, about an hour west of Rochester. But we've been in business for 25 years. This year, we were the patent holders for the technology. So we hold over 300 patents on the capture system, the technology, the sensors, and the software. So we're very unique. There's no company that does exactly what we do out there. We have massive retention rate from employees. It was created by an engineer from RIT, right in Rochester, New York, where we're located. And we bring on a lot of folks throughout the state of New York and New England as employees, and they stay with us for their whole career. So we're very proud of that. I think another thing, an important thing to point out is we do capture 94% of the U.S. population. So we do capture all over the country. We've been doing this a very, very long time, and we're happy to help you in any way we can. So let's just get into a little bit about imagery in general, right? Because Lori's kind of brought me up to speed on how you have used imagery in the past and haven't used imagery in the past, right? So there's a lot of valuable data within imagery. So we kind of, we're known of taking the pretty pictures, but we are really a data company, right? And we use that data to help assist you solve problems throughout your day-to-day work lives, right? So you might be familiar with ortho imagery, right? The top-down imagery, maybe something you'd see in Google Earth. Sometimes the state might capture the top-down imagery and offer it to you. So any one of you that have seen that before, I'm sure you're familiar with the top-down imagery. But we do provide that in all of our flights. But what we specialize in is called oblique imagery, and that's the angled imagery, right? So the best way to think about it is if the top-down view, you're getting one set of data. With oblique imagery, you're getting 5 sets of data. So you're getting the top-down, you're getting the north, south, east, and west, right? So As we go through, I'll kind of point out what's, how it's important to multiple departments and how it can help you. This is a fun little game. We can do it quickly, but can anyone tell me what this image is? This is a top-down image.
Mount
Does anyone
Rushmore.
know what it is?
Mount Rushmore?
Yes, it is Mount Rushmore. So
That was fun.
most that's a great guess.
Sorry, I thought it was supposed to
Most
be.
people don't know from the top down, but if you look at all 5 points of data, it's very easy to point out, obviously, that it's Mount Rushmore. It's just kind of a tool we use to just help folks understand the power of oblique imagery. When I did the demo for Lori in general, one of the biggest and most important factors in what we do is sharing the technology with multiple departments, right? So I would say our main customers are going to be on the assessment side, on the GIS side, and on the 911 side, right? But again, that's not where it stops. The value goes through multiple departments. So I appreciate the time you've given me today. But I think if you guys do move forward with this, we won't stop training every department as much as you want to use it. So a little bit on the 911 value and benefits is if you are a 911 dispatcher and someone calls and you don't have imagery, they could be located outside of the house or somewhere else. Most people are using cell phones these days. Most people aren't calling from their house, right? There's still that situation. But if someone is outside, you can help identify exactly where they are, so the dispatcher can communicate that to the first responder and guide them to them. So we like to say we do save lives, and I have many use cases where we actually have saved lives with our technology. So we're very proud of that. And then for law enforcement, similarly, you're able to get to a location, identify the access points in a building or just a complex like you see here. You can see the exit points, you can see potential hiding locations. So the police officers that would be there would be totally aware, whether they have this technology on a tablet, right, within their police cars, or they have it in their hands, or they're just getting direction from the 911 dispatcher. It's very, very valuable. And I think another benefit, and we're not going to do a full demonstration today inside, but you can actually create these annotations and text within the imagery, right? So all of our imagery, when you export the imagery, it's time stamped and date stamped when the imagery was captured, so that when let's just say it goes to a legal case, you can actually use this for a legal case, right? Our imagery is accurate data, right? So it's the accurate XY data, so it does hold up in a court of law. But I would say the most important thing for police officers is kind of that peace of mind to be able to know exactly where those access points are. And then similarly for fire rescue and EMS, obviously the access points are very, very important. But let's just say, a fire department, the fire team goes to a location and they don't know, maybe there's a back patio and they don't have visibility on it. Maybe they don't know if they need a ladder. All of these things save lots and lots of time for the fire department to be able to help save lives. I would say the risk, mitigating risk as well, right? If you have this aerial imagery and maybe there's some sort of gas tank wouldn't be visible from a street view, but if you have this aerial imagery, you can kind of identify it and plan accordingly when you go to the location. And then emergency management, similarly, obviously, not, Lewiston is a customer of ours, and the assessors there, I consider a friend of mine. And I obviously, when everything happened there, this past month, I called them immediately, and we're gonna train all the first responders. We're even talking about training the state police in Maine on our imagery and giving them access to what's available at this time, so that they are more prepared if any situation happens like that, right? So if you're in emergency management, you can plan around for schools and any sort of large event hall in case any sort of emergency like this arises. Obviously it's not a perfect solution, but it is giving these folks more data, and it is going to potentially save lives. So, if I can help, I would love to. So, as we move forward in this process, I really, really, really can't stress enough that I would love to train the police officers. I'd love to train the fire department, and I'd love to train the emergency management staff and really share best practices, how other towns and cities and counties and states are using this, to be able to plan accordingly, right? Any questions right off the bat? I know I kind of rattled through those pretty quickly. Anything anyone has any question about at this time?
Is the imaging done in real time?
So no, so we capture, what we do is we would capture like a contracted time, right? So what we've talked about with Lori is capturing this spring, right? So what we do is kind of think about it like mowing your lawn, right? So we take a plane and we literally go back and forth like you would be mowing your lawn, and we capture millions of images and we stitch them together so they're accurate for measurement. But it's not real time. There's no possibility for us to do real time. We don't have satellites. It's done by a plane. There certainly is satellite imagery, but it's not as high definition as what we can offer. And it's certainly not angled, right? So all the satellite imagery is all top down, and it's very, very pixelated. But yes, it's we're contracted to fly. Any other questions?
Do you need the town's permission before you can run this to get the imagery?
Yeah, of course. We contract with the municipalities directly, right? So we would contract with you directly before we did anything. So I'm assuming you're kind of talking privacy, right? So you would know we have a project management team and operations team that works directly with the main point of contact, right? So whether it's Lori or the town manager or whoever it might be at the town, we communicate with you every step of the way when we're going to fly and how long it's going to take, right? So everybody's well aware of us taking the imagery. And as far as just to kind of hit on the privacy, because it does come up, right? This is a concern of some folks. So we do what's called the imagery we're trying to capture for you, and this is like our standard imagery, is what's called 3-inch GSD. You think about it as the pixels of the picture are 3 inches by 3 inches on the ground, right? So as you zoom in further, there's no possibility of looking at people's windows. You wouldn't be able to make out anything, on the ground or anything like that. I know it's, privacy is very important. And what else I would say is the imagery that we do capture is yours and yours alone, right? We have a team that goes through this imagery. So if there's anything obscene or anything like that on it, we remove it immediately. And we communicate with you immediately, right? But I do understand the concern that some folks could have, but it's very, very commonplace in the country right now. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, you don't go and take these photos unless the town contracts you to do it.
Correct. Yes, yeah, we would never do it unless we contracted with you. There'd be no reason for us to.
In regards to the real-time question that she had, while you
Yep.
have still images, did you say before that you had cell phone location data that you can overlay onto those images in real time?
So basically how it works, so I'll give you an example. I was in the state of Rhode Island. We contract with the state of Rhode Island as a whole. So that means we fly the whole state. We work directly with our 911 department because Rhode Island's a bit unique, right? They actually do 911 distribution for the whole state in one office. It's not done by town, it's not done by city or county or anything like that. It's done by the whole state. But basically what happens is they use what's called a CAD software for 911, which picks up the address points, and then our imagery automatically will pop up after that. Now, we have the ability through our mobile app, right? So let's just say theoretically, a police officer had this imagery available to him. In our mobile app, we have a location button in there. So when that location button is on, that imagery will pop up when they're at that location, right? So if they're at a specific address, it'll pop up at that address. That answers your question.
I have one question. As far as the data that's collected, is like, how secure is that? Like, where is it housed?
It's housed on our cloud software. It's very secure. We're actually constantly taking measures to make it more secure. I mean, as you can imagine, we contract with every department in New York City, 90% of the counties in the state of New York, all throughout the country, and security is a huge issue. So we take it very, very seriously. But all the imagery and all the data, and when I say data, the data that we have is only the data that you're giving us, right? So we're capturing the images and we draw building outlines on them, right? So you know exactly the dimensions of a property for assessment purposes, for permitting purposes, for a number of different reasons. But what we don't really create data. So and I think Lori touched on it when she was kind of giving the intro. We do, we overlay parcel data on top of the imagery, right? So whether it's roads or, roads and streets or parcel boundaries, right? So that's a big one. Maybe it's an address, or maybe one of the parcel data has names on it. That would be your data that you'd be uploading to our system, and it's all yours. No one else is going to have access to it. What we have is called, in our software, it's called geofencing, right? So if we contract with you, we would give you the town of Lyman, and the town of Lyman alone, right? So unless there was a reason for a neighboring city or a neighboring town that's also capturing for you guys to share that data, you would give us the permission, both of you would give us the permission to open that access, but anyone else would not have access to that data. Okay? Yeah.
So the property lines that you overlay are what the town has in the tax maps, correct?
Correct. They could be state parcel data that's provided. We actually, one of our in-house, she's like a certified surveyor. She's from Maine. I know she does a lot of great work for the state of Maine for some parcel data. So that I know that's available to you, but it could be yours and yours alone, right? So I know Lori and I have talked about it. You're not currently working with a GIS company. You may have in the past, you may in the future, but if anything changes, we're happy to take any of that data and overlay it right on our image. Okay.
I had a question. I wondered, why aren't you doing this on a countywide basis? It seems rather inefficient to do it on a small town by small town basis in Maine.
Yeah, that's a great question. So,
That's the great answer.
and the great answer is the county doesn't do procurement, right? So,
The county kind of
in New York, and most everywhere in the country, we do counties, right? We do counties. There's definitely situations where we do towns and cities alone for, a number of different reasons. I'll give you an example. That Rhode Island, we contract with the state to fly at once a year, right? Once a year in the spring, but they assess the assessors, and this is for 911 purposes, but the assessors at each town, they have to do revaluations every year. So they need the imagery at the end of the year. So we have to fly between November 15th and January 15th, right? So they are contracted separately. Typically, of course, we would always like to do, we would always like to fly large areas, right? It makes the most sense. It's the most efficient for us. It's the most efficient for other folks too. But unfortunately, I have a territory in New England that counties don't do procurement, right? So I have the only option we have is to do business with the towns. We would welcome you working with multiple towns. We would welcome you working with the Council of Governments, right? So I don't know if you guys currently work with the Council of Government. But yeah, and the more the merrier, right? We want to cover large areas. That's really where our strong suit is. But we do capture smaller towns. We do it often, and we do it very well. That's my great answer, I guess.
Thank you.
Is all the photos aerial?
Yes. So we have the ability in our software to do a link for Street View, right? So I know Google offers a Street View, but there's many companies out there that you can actually plug the URL, right, the website in, and it would automatically populate. And we can help you with this. Automatically give you the option to get Street View imagery as well. So you can pull that data into our software. I don't think we need to hit on orthos. I guess I'll kind of speak to the flights and how, what we do, right? So we're very custom in what we do. So we have counties that fly once every 3 years. We have towns that fly twice a year. We have towns that fly once a year. We have the ability to capture the obliques and orthos. And then if you purchased an oblique and ortho flight, we also have the ability to capture ortho only, right? So top-down imagery only. And I think it's very valuable data to have ortho-only imagery, especially if it's coupled with maybe once every other year, once every 3 year oblique imagery as well. So it's something new for us. We've been doing is capturing the ortho only. And it's something we've talked to Lori about as well. And as far as assessment base and what we're doing with many counties and cities and towns, we do offer. We've had a product called Change Finder, and again, Lori talked about it in the beginning of the meeting. Where you're comparing one set of data to the other, right? So the idea would be, let's just say we captured once in 2020, or let's just say we captured in the spring of 2024, and then we captured again in 2027. We would be able to identify any changes that have happened within that time, right? So it's basically our own, custom software that, it can filter out new properties, demolished properties that have had changes 25%, 50%, 75% or more. It can be, there's many attributes that we can do for it. We can do, just decks or eliminate decks, right? So maybe that's not something you're concerned about. So it's a very flexible product. You know, our newest product, and this is kind of the most popular right now, is called Sketch Inspect, right? So at the assessment level, you would have CAMA sketches, right, to identify, you know, the parameters of a property, right? So what we do is we take the imagery, we draw building outlines on it, and then we overlay your current sketches. And again, we identify changes. And to do this manually without the software, I can tell you from experience, it would never get done. No assessor could possibly do this manually by themselves. It's not feasible. And every single project we do, we uncover many changes. Any question about that? I know this is kind of, Lori's kind of bringing you into the fold from an assessment standpoint. A question on the assessment side that you guys would have? All right. Okay, I kind of hit on it before the mobile app, but again, the mobile app is very powerful. I would highly recommend getting any first responders, any code enforcement, anything like that where, let's just say theoretically you're an assessor and you're at a property and you can't get on the property. Surprisingly enough, people don't like tax assessors on their property, especially if they have a large property. So they're not very welcome. So this kind of assists. So say you're going to a property, you just hit the location button and then you're going to have access to the property, right? And you can do all the measurement tools on the app as well. But for first responders, again, access points, you know, any sort of streams layout that they might not be aware of is very helpful to them. All right, I'm going to briefly touch on integrations but I don't think this is a possibility, just so you know. So the idea of an integration would be you have our images. It says pictometry imagery. That's what our company used to be named, as Pictometry. So we still call our images pictometry. So you take your aerial images, you take your GIS data, right? So your parcel data, and then you put it into Connect, which is our software. And we have the ability to distribute this through many different ways. We talked about the mobile app, you know, we talked about the software, but we also have the ability to do things like web services and APIs. So let's just say theoretically you have a CAD software, which is a 911 software, that you can literally bring that imagery into that software. So you don't have two different softwares running. There's not as much clutter. There's not as many clicks. And that we integrate with over 300 partners right now to be able to do this. The other thing I kind of want to touch on, we do have the ability to have public facing imagery, right? So a lot of folks use it for, property records cards sometimes. So if you have a property records software or a property records landing page on your website, we have the ability to share that imagery with you, right? So it's pretty helpful to be able to bring that imagery into the property records cards. This just kind of hits on some of our integrations, right? So many assessment integrations, a lot of CAMA softwares we integrate with, many GIS software we integrate with, et cetera, right? So if and when that arises, you know, we're happy to help you with that integration. We're happy to build our imagery within your software.
Do you know if you integrate with First Due?
First Due?
Yeah, Fire Department Records Management System.
Let me look it up real quick. First Due, D-U-E?
Correct.
Okay. I'll look at our portal real quick. It doesn't ring a bell. Oh, yes, we do. We can actually share. You guys currently using that?
Yes.
That's great. So I was hoping to have a screenshot, but yeah, we are integrated. Imagined. So it's internal only, pre-plans. Oh, I do have a screenshot here. I'll bring it over. Show you what it looks like. Good, right here. So basically, you would click on the property, and then there would be a button on the side that would just pop the imagery out. So if you're at a specific location, it would automatically identify that location and could pop it out. Now, I am unfamiliar with this software. Is this something you guys use for tablets, or is it just in the station? How do you utilize the software currently?
Both. It's our raise management system, but they also have a mobile responder that we use tablets in all the apparatus.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, so we currently integrate with it. I'm not exactly positive how exactly we're integrating right now, whether it's through the mobile app, but any of these integration softwares, it's kind of up to both sides, right? So if you have a good relationship with anyone there, even if it's a sales rep, due to the fact that us being integrated, we probably already have a relation. So we can, if it's not exactly what you want, we can talk about making it look a little different too, right? So, but that's great. I appreciate you bringing that up. That's, it's a great integration. That can be pretty powerful for you guys, as you can imagine. Any other questions? I can do a demo, but I know we're kind of it's 6:42 now, so I don't want to use everyone's time. But if people are interested in seeing a demo, I'm happy to show it.
They're all set. I did share the YouTube videos that you had given me links to, so they probably either saw them or could see them if they wanted to.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, and if anyone ever does, I'm happy to show it to you. So let's touch on the disaster response program. So this is very, very important. If there is any sort of disaster, basically what we're contracted to do, it's listed out in all of our contract. It's a FEMA response, right? So it's a hurricane. It could be flooding, tornado, earthquake, but obviously the problems in the Northeast could be different, right? So flooding, possibly, I don't know if you guys deal with flooding at all, or if you have dealt with any sort of disasters, but any sort of event, regardless of whether it is FEMA rated, we work with you. We're not going to charge you full price for a flight, even if it doesn't meet the criteria. At the end of the day, we kind of look at you guys like partners, and we don't want to just work with you one and done. We want to work with you for a very long time. And of course, if it's a disaster, we want to help you, right? So what we do is we get a plane up in the air as soon as humanly possible, right? So that would be up to weather, air traffic control, whatever might be happening, whatever the natural disaster could be. We want to go and we want to inspect it. We contract with the state of Hawaii. So obviously there was a huge fire there this past year. We had a plane up in the air, I think 3 days after it was over. And we assessed all the damage for them. And we did it very, very quickly. So it was very useful to them. We do it very, very often in Florida for hurricanes. And I did it a few times we just did kind of flights after. There was some flooding in New York this year that we kind of assisted on. I'll say the first time we ever did the disaster response program was after 9/11. And it was game changing for them, right? They were able to assess the damage very, very quickly. And as you can imagine, that assisted in some of the recovery efforts too. So it's very, very powerful if anything happens to have this in your back pocket. So I'll kind of end it with the training we have. So training is always readily available. So I have a regional technical trainer or regional technical manager counterpart of mine that covers the same territory. She actually comes from our training team, but we're always happy to train everyone. But we do have a dedicated training team that we deploy, right? So we could deploy them virtually, we could deploy them in person, depending on how many folks would like to get trained. So a lot of different training options, right? So there's an online kind of classroom. There's many on-demand videos. And then we do like two webinars a month, usually, to kind of go over like best practices and different tips and tricks and stuff. So it's pretty useful. So Lori, I didn't know if you wanted me to kind of go over the proposal we talked about, or did you want to do that internally?
Probably internally. Yeah, internally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I think we went through everything.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
I don't.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for your time. And everyone have a great Thanksgiving. And I appreciate your time today. And yeah, Lori, I hope to hear from you soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
So I have more info, and anyone has any questions and want to contact me, otherwise I'll just touch base with Lindsay in a couple weeks and see if you have a decision. Okay. Anything else? No.
Right now.
Okay. Have a great
Yeah.
night. Thanks.
Thank you, Lori.
All right.
All right, so
Please.
I don't think we're going on. I don't think so.
I don't think so. Yeah. Should be able pretty quick though. I want to make sure we're okay to jump to 5.
Are we still good, Lindsay?
We're still on?
You gonna jump to 5? Is that the plan?
I don't know, it's up to you.
I think that's the best bet.
I think it would be the 5A.
Yep, all right. All right, so we're gonna go, all right, that was item 1. We're gonna jump to item 5A. Because these gentlemen costing us money.
Traffic time.
That's all I have in mind. I don't have B or C or any of those.
There's stuff.
You're right, that's all I have too.
I don't think there's stuff, the other
Doesn't
ones.
matter. It's all that matters, is these guys.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't really have a pre-planned thing for today. Lindsay had sent us a copy of the ordinance, the latest draft of the franchise agreement that had been going back and forth with the cable company. She had a couple questions she posed to both me and Tony, and then suggested we could come here as well to address any questions that you might have. Do you want me to go over the questions you had, or?
Yeah, the only ones I had was what we talked about before, and I sent them to you guys in the email, that just discussions that had come up.
Yep.
Some Tony might have answered to in the email, like liquidated damages, the franchise fee and stuff like that.
Yep. With regards to the franchise fee, I believe just the question was what this agreement does in terms of the franchise fee. So I believe the way it's worded is it establishes the 5% franchise fee, but it's your choice whether you want to I mean, you can change it at any time. It can be anywhere from 0 up to 5%. Just have to give them 90 days notice. I think the default right now is the franchise fee. Well, we could always tweak that. We could switch it around, but basically it goes from 0 to 5%. And you guys just decide whenever you want that. It doesn't require a new agreement. It just requires 90 days notice to the cable company. So that's how the franchise fee works. I got that right? Yep. There was a question, she had asked, liquidated damages. There's a section in that agreement regarding liquidated damages. The liquidated damages is a predetermined fee or damage amount because it might be hard to determine what the actual damages are. So that's like, sometimes a contract will have that, like a construction contract. If you're late on delivering the house or the project, it'd be $100 a day or something like that. So in this franchise agreement, there is a provision in there saying for any violation, there could be more than one violation. For any one, there can be a liquidated damage assessment by the town against the cable company for $50 a day. Probably they can find that in their couch cushions. But it can add up, and there could be multiple ones. There is a cap saying it can't be any more than $25,000 a year. And then there's a procedure in there for how the town would assess that and how the cable company can test it or have a hearing on it. I don't know how likely this thing is likely to be used. It is found in the model cable franchise agreement issued by the state. I know that when we did edits to this thing, we wanted to make it clear that that's not we're not just limited to that, because there might be other circumstances where we might have to, for example, go to court or something to injunctively forcing someone to do something, or indemnification, they cause some liability that has to come back on us. So we wrote something in there. We're not limiting ourselves to this. It is one procedure the town could use to bring the cable company into compliance if they needed to, but it's basically one of the procedures available. That was one of the edits we put in.
Very rare.
Yeah, I don't see this likely to be used too often.
Has it ever been used? Was it in the last one?
I mean, I don't know how often towns even had interactions with these cable providers in the past. So. But it is something, it's been in the last few drafts that have gone back and forth. We haven't taken it out. And like I said, it has been part of the model one. But what I tried to do last time I edited it was try to make it so it wasn't the town's only tool it could use in the event that there's something bad happens. Another subject that was brought up was the ordinance that was passed, and Tony pointed out there's some legislation that is working its way through the State House right now that I think he believes is likely to pass, which expands some definitions, I think, dealing with new technologies, not just cable companies, but streaming services. Anything that can use the public right of way, I think, is what that definition is meant to include. Has now got this new term of video service provider. So Tony had recommended that we have our ordinance make sure it covers just video service providers. The ordinance that we have passed has that term in there, but there's many references as well to cable system operators. So he recommended, and I agree with his recommendations, we should probably rewrite some of those sections to make it the broader term of video service provider, and maybe revise that ordinance. This is the type of ordinance you don't have to go to town meeting for. It's literally, you guys can pass it. So all you got to do is make the edits, have a public hearing and pass the ordinance. So what I'll do is I'll work with him and Lindsay, and we'll get some revisions to there. And next time you get some time, you can take that
Didn't
one
I
out.
see an email that we would, that you recommend holding off until that legislation either passes or?
Yeah, he recommended see if it passes. Yeah.
We can still do some paperwork. until then.
You said it's in January, right?
That's when it's supposed to come forward, according to the sponsor of the bill.
But I think he's right. I think that'd be a good idea. We just kind of missed it when it first went through.
Should that be amended before the agreement? When they keep working on the agreement? Yeah.
The chances of them getting that agreement back to us before January are probably pretty slim. Yeah. Did we ever even get a response, the last one that we sent?
We were waiting on the ordinance to go through,
Okay.
because, yeah, that was where we left it.
We sent the agreement to,
They had the draft ordinance and the draft agreement, and they just wanted, the draft ordinance not to really alter the agreement so much that it would cause any more restrictions or changes. So they were good with that, as far as I'm aware. We just wanted to pass the ordinance first and then come back to the agreement.
the ordinance that we have is basically all the guts of everything are in the agreement itself. It's just, it kind of just mirrors what's in the agreement. It's something relatively simple.
So,
I just have a comment in regards, let me clarify a little bit. The legislation is LD 1967, if anybody wants to look it up. It received Maine Municipal Association's approval early on last January, as a matter of fact. It has the wholehearted endorsement of the Attorney General's office. The Maine Connectivity Authority and the Maine Broadband Authority both endorsed the bill. Also, the PUC has weighed in on it and said they are neither for nor against the bill. However, it fits within their current mission for providing mediation and arbitration services. So if a town does get into a disagreement with a cable operator over a non-compliance issue, where they're not doing what they're supposed to, instead of having to litigate it or fine them or whatever, there can be mediation and arbitration services through the PUC. And that's an important part of the bill. And it's a forward-looking bill because it takes into consideration other entities that will be using your public rights of way in the future. And they have to provide a cable-like app in their service. In other words, they have to look like cable. Plus, they have to have facilities. They own their own facilities on the public right of way. Those two things are what trigger the fact that they have to get a franchise with you. And that description, video service provider, includes cable operators. So.
I just have a question. Tony, is there anything else in that bill that we should anticipate to change in this franchise agreement right now?
No, I've been looking for that. I've been watching it very carefully. The only thing I wanted to caution was that certain parts of the bill don't take effect until the bill is enacted, of course. None of it goes back and says you have to do it in the past. We couldn't get the AG to agree to that. We tried. But so there are certain enforcement things that will happen once the bill cuts in. So I don't want you guys to sign a franchise in advance of that because I want you to have the full language that the bill has in your franchise agreement. So it comports with what the state is doing, basically. Cable operators, needless to say, hate the bill. They don't like it because it's very beneficial to towns and the viewing public. So it doesn't make them any money. Let's put it that way. I'll take any questions if anybody has any. One more thing I just remembered. When you're deciding about the franchise fee, as I mentioned before, it's entirely up to you guys. My only job is to inform you of what's possible. There are other towns. I can give you the names of selectmen and town managers who've gone through the same decision-making process. Berwick is one that's not too far away. They went through this and they can tell you what their experience was if you want me to put you in touch with someone over there.
Yeah, can you send that to Lindsay? I'd be
Sure.
interested in
Yeah.
that.
It's always good to make informed decisions. That's
Yes.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. They answer all the questions that were there.
Yeah, unless you guys had any other questions or thoughts on this, it sounds like we're kind of gonna revisit the ordinance amendments January? Is that what I'm hearing? Until that bill passes, or do we do that now?
Well, it sounds like assuming it passes, there might be some things in there we're gonna have to put in both the agreement and the ordinance. Is that fair to say?
Yes, but it doesn't preclude us from making the changes I just requested. To get
Okay.
ready. It's one less thing you'll have to do later.
Okay,
So we can do this.
Do it, yeah, before it passes, and when it's passed, we're ready.
And the ordinance as it stands right now is not gonna hurt anything.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
You're not being harmed by the way it's adopted.
Got it.
We're
Okay.
just looking forward down the road.
And you know where this bill is in the legislature? You said it got,
It passed the Energy Utilities and Technology Committee on the 8th of November. It's already had their public hearing, they passed it. It's a bipartisan bill, it has 3 Republican sponsors, the rest are Democrats. And our sponsor, Melanie Sachs, said that, Representative Sachs, said that it should come before the legislature in January. I know they have a lot of bills to do, but ours has been around for a long time. And since it does have a lot of support, I don't anticipate it's gonna get dragged out. So I'm hoping it gets resolved in January. Worst case, it could go to June, you know, when they finally quit the session, end the session. But I'm hopeful we'll be doing so.
unless you guys have more questions.
We'll move it closer.
Yes, incremental steps.
Yeah.
No.
As always, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
See you. Can we do it?
Yep.
I make a motion, we go into executive session under MRSA 405A, discussion with town manager regarding personnel matters, and MRSA 405C, discussion regarding the condition or acquisition of real property.
You're not gonna do public input first?
Oh, thank you.
We can put on what?
You skipped to 5.
number 2.
We did 1 and then you went to 5.
Right. Correct.
So either you can do that before or after the executive session. I guess that's what Yvonne was asking.
Yes, that's my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Future.
We can do 2 first, yep. Yeah, hopefully we can make it. All right, item 2, public input.
Good evening. Sorry, Don beat you. All right. Joe Wagner, 26 Day Road. A remark was made at last Friday's workshop that only 54 people were in attendance at the recent special town meeting. The intimation was that the decision made at that special town meeting to restore the town clerk position was in some way not reflective of the will of the people. First, according to the charter, 15 registered voters are required to constitute a quorum at a special town meeting. That was attained by a factor of more than 3. On the night of the special town meeting, in this room, it was so crowded that the select board generously offered their seats. Nonetheless, some of our townspeople also stood throughout the proceedings. To hold that special town meeting, 305 signatures of registered Lyman voters were obtained. I believe that is more than the vote total received by any one of the current members of the select board. The relatively low percentage of registered voters who participated in our municipal elections from 2021 to the present does not diminish the legitimacy of the current board's authority, nor does the number of those who participated in the special town meeting discount the decision that was made at that meeting. An email from the town manager dated November 14th was sent to Rod Tato, the chair of the planning board, and myself, informing us that the select board planned to conduct an executive session, a discussion of the planning board contacting legal services and its reviewing authority of 3 specific issues that have come before the board. The use of the Young Men Christian association of a private property for a 1-week summer camp, the conditional use permit for MX207, a motocross venue here in Lyman, and the notice of decision for the repurposing of Cousins School. It is well within the Select Board's authority to review the decisions of the other components of our town government. However, the decisions of the Planning Board that the Select Board wishes to review were all originally made by the Planning Board in open session. The review of those decisions should also be made in open session. I think we'd all agree the people's business should be conducted in public. At the November 1 Planning Board meeting, Town Council Brad Morin was present to assist in developing language for the Cousins School's notice of decision. I took the opportunity to ask Mr. Morin for his opinion on an issue which I felt had not yet been resolved. Whether Section 823 of the Lyman zoning ordinance involving planning board vacancies conflicts with Section 512 of the charter. At the Select Board's recent direction, reference to Section 8.2.3 of the Lyman zoning ordinance was deleted from the planning board bylaws. I just want an assurance that that was not inadvertently directing the planning board to disregard a provision of the Lyman zoning ordinance, a foundational document that, like the charter, was ratified by the voters. I don't believe anyone here has a law degree. Not to get advice from an attorney is essentially practicing without a license. Seeking professional advice early in a decision-making process or asking for confirmation of interpretation of law is a worthwhile investment of the people's money. It can prevent more costly legal expenses in the future. In a subsequent email dated November 16th, the town manager sent to, once again, Rod Tato and myself, detailed questions were provided regarding the 3 planning board issues the Select Board wishes to review. Also in that email was the statement, there is some concern with ethical standards. When the Select Board recently reviewed the Planning Board's bylaws, the Planning Board was advised to make a change in the procedure through which any accusation of conflict of interest was handled. The Select Board directed the Planning Board to hold such discussions in an open meeting instead of executive session. It was a point well made, a point well taken. The Planning Board complied with that directive. The discussion of possible unethical conduct on the part of any Planning Board member must also be conducted in open session. The alleged misconduct must be matched with the specific section of the Town Code of Ethics that was supposedly violated. We must take care in using the expression unethical. Lately, it has been used too casually. Ethics are moral principles that govern a person's behavior. They are the bedrock of our character as individuals and as a society. To accuse another of unethical behavior is to defame that person's character and reputation within the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have an answer to the FOA thing, if you guys don't mind?
Please.
Okay, so FOA authorizes the appointing board to hold an executive session to discuss appointment, assignment, duties, evaluation, discipline, or dismissal, and including other things, of appointees or employees they appoint. So you're allowed to call people in and have discussions. Under 405-6A1, an executive session may be held if public discussion could be reasonably expected to cause damage to the individual's reputation or the individual's right to privacy would be violated. Planning board members are compensated, part-time, non-exempt employees of the town appointed by the Select Board. If the members would like to request the discussion be in public, they're allowed to make that request. When I emailed the chair and the vice chair on 2 occasions, I gave them the opportunity to speak with me about any questions they would have. I let them know there would be questions regarding their reviewing authority and concern of ethical standards. They have not reached out to me to address any concern. So I would ask, does the planning board or the vice chair and chair wish to speak about these topics in public session? Because if they do, they can make that request and it can be honored. Or do you want to keep it private?
Oh, but it's, you know what?
Okay, perfect.
You're done with it. We're still in.
Public input.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm still a member of the public. May I speak? Thank you. My name is Don Hernan. I'm a planning board member. Been there for a while. I did have some knowledge, or I understood there was going to be an executive session to discuss some planning board activities. And so I wrote up a memo, which I sent to the town manager. It was 4 pages. I don't want to read that. I just sent it this afternoon, so it's probably not in your package. What I'd like to do is just read the last 4 paragraphs, 4 or 5 paragraphs, which are short. And before I do, though, I want to mention our CEO took the initiative to submit a quarterly report on which the planning board approved, and I thank him for that. And I would just like to point out that this is just for last quarter, there's 14 items on there. So the planning board has been conducting some activities for the benefit of the town and the town residents and applicants. So we haven't been sitting on our butts. Not that I've said you said that, but here's my comments, my last part. As a planning board member, I take pride in working with other planning board members to help ensure that applicants are treated fairly in accordance with the requirements of the LZO, Lyman zoning ordinance. Each application is a separate project and should be judged on its own merits. The planning board does have discretion under LZO 8.3.6A to, quote, modify or waive, site plan review standards, under certain circumstances. Okay, but that's about the only place in there, except for there's something in the shoreline that gives us some discretion about locations, how far you got to go back from the water. But anyway, and I further go on to state in my memo, it may be that the planning board has not been totally consistent and has used too much discretion in some cases. All actions of the planning board are subject to public scrutiny. Planning board members are part-time town employees. We are paid minimum wage for the time spent at planning board meetings, public hearings, and site walks. We meet in public. I have no personal agenda. I do not believe other planning board members have personal agendas. The planning board mission statement and bylaws state our goals for service to the public. And I'm serious about that comment. Action requested. If the town manager, select board has specific actions desired by the planning board in its handling of applicants, please provide them in writing. I'm not kidding on this because we did rework the planning board bylaws and you approved those, but I'm not in the rock business, okay? And I'm just a member of the planning board. I'm not the vice chair or the chairman or anything else, but I've been on the planning board for a long time. And we've been trying to do a good job. The ordinance is not going to get changed easily. It's not because I don't want to change the ordinance. I tried 3 times with some of the members on the select board here to get a few words changed with 0 results. Very frustrating for me to correct a problem. However, and I'm also a ex officio member on the Ordinance Review Committee. And it's going to take them some time. And remember, due to the new charter, again, I tried to get some wording changed. Could have been done this November, but the select board did not want to put this on the ballot. We can't change ordinances until general elections, which is every 2 years. So you can't change the ordinances easily. And you say, well, so what? The ordinance is okay. Well, it's got some problems with it, and we need some help on it. And yes, the Ordinance Review Committee is working on it, and we'll make some progress. But in any case, nothing's perfect. I'm just trying to, anyway, I gave specific comments on the three areas that Joe mentioned. But those comments were not voted on by the planning board. They're just my personal comments based on time I spent on those projects. So that's my 2 cents. Again, thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Don.
Somebody go. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to read an email I had sent to the board regarding the election. I know there's been concern about how an election is. Are the numbers being appropriately counted? Is everything running smoothly? And after the election we had, the numbers all equaled. There was, I think, 1,300, 1,400. I do not remember the number off the top of my head. It was a
67.
There you go. It was actually a sizable election. It really was. There are no words to express how great this past election was. I've been part of many, many elections as a worker, warden, and moderator, and this truly was the smoothest I've ever had seen one run. So many of the workers kept coming up to me as warden and telling me the same thing. The detail before, during, and after election by our new town clerk and deputy clerks was impeccable. Videos were emailed out in advance for all of us to watch that were working the polls. What really blew my mind was the manuals that were created for the ballot clerks and workers in the warden manual. Blown away. I truly never knew all my duties, and I had no resources to go on in case something went sideways. With the manual I was given, three things came up, and I was able to make a phone call to the state where someone immediately picked up and helped me understand a form or deal with an issue. And they actually had given me some advice and realized it was what I was really saying after they hung up, and they called me right back and corrected themselves, and we got it straight. As everyone likes to kid, if someone got hit by the proverbial beer truck, with the manual I was given, or anyone that
10 years ago.
with the manual I was given, or anyone that had it, they could step in and run the election without a hitch. The deputy clerks were so excited to learn and be part of the election, and the town clerk really made it truly calm, enjoyable day for everyone that came to vote, especially the workers. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to the town clerk, the deputy clerks for an amazing election. It's praise well deserved for all they did and how seamless it all was. So that was just one thing, and I'll try to keep in my 5 minutes. I quickly gathered some information after the workshop that was had regarding the town clerk position and full-time, part-time discussion, and I have copies for all of you if you'd like it. So I was quickly able to, just a few things. Biddeford has 23,000 people. Their town clerk only comes in and does elections. That's it, nothing more. And this is all facts and data that you can verify. This is not anything that I'm making up, so you can give Biddeford a call. I was able to list all the duties for Biddeford and Waterboro and Town of Arundel. This is all from their websites. These are all the duties of their town clerk in a page and a half. And, Vicki mentioned that there was 3 pages of clerk duties that she had on papers that she brought in that night. And I was like, that seems like a lot. But again, looking at Biddeford, 23,000 people, same font size, 1 page. Also of note that was talked about is the problem with hours and wanting to have our public served. Waterboro has now begun closing on Fridays. They actually have a nice little flyer they made, because most of the stuff can be done online. I attached that as well. So they're now open only Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 to 5:30, Tuesday 8 to 6, and they're closed on Fridays, unless there's a storm, and then they'll open on Friday. So not everyone's schedule is always going to be met. No matter how many people you have working in a building, people get sick. Waterboro's closed their window because they had people sick and there wasn't enough help. My dentist closes from 12 to 1:30. So you can't call, can't get information, can't schedule an appointment. We all do the best we can. So, a full-time election town clerk is not going to change that. Part-time, I think, is great. I mean, there definitely could be used, and again, cross-trained. And the last thing to go over as well is I got a copy of the papers that you had that night, Vicki, and just on the first page is redundancy. Oversee the deputy clerks as needed. Oversee the deputy clerks as needed. Oversee the deputy. It's in my world, and in transcript world, we call it padding. There's a lot of redundancy in those 3 pages, and then saying it's 3 pages.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you
brought
had.
it and I read it because I didn't have anything. There was nothing. I went through my stuff. I found that. I brought it.
Right.
I feel like it may have offended some people that I did that.
No, because I was curious. I reached out and asked, and I did it for you. There's never been a town clerk position approved by the board ever. There is a sample one that was given and back in 2020, and that seems to be the one that was taken and revamped by someone that was given to you. But there's never been a town clerk position on paper because it was elected. So there's none that's been approved by the board. There was the last study that was done in the job descriptions that were done, 2021. I have the list because I FOIA'd it. This was not approved. And I think there was also the part-time assessor. That one wasn't approved either. So that's just my public statement I wanted to make. And thank you for your time. But, hearing the people's voice that do want a town clerk, I think that's great. But having a full-time one, monetarily wise, fiscally responsible to the town. Vicki, I served with you on the budget committee. You wanted to flatline that budget probably 2 years in a row. Is it physically responsible to hire a full-time town clerk when they're going to sit around? Other towns can do it where they're just coming in and doing elections. Maybe it can be done that way too. I don't know, but with data and facts, it could be figured out. Thank you for your time.
you. All right. Okay, yeah, I go back to B mail.
All right, mail is a letter from the York County Community Action looking for funding for a small budget season. And let's move on to item 3.
Did you guys still want to do the executive sessions, or do you want to save for later?
Let's just crank. Can we just crank?
I think we can just crank this right down.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just crank it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said there, please. I didn't hear your answer to that.
We're gonna go right down through it.
Crank.
I'm just trying, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be a pain, I'm just asking, because I didn't hear you. Are you gonna continue and do that at the end, or are you not gonna do it? If you're not gonna do it, I'm gonna leave, that's all. That's my reason I asked the question.
We're gonna continue right down through the list, whether you guys opt to stay or not, that's your call.
Well, was not invited, and I'm not gonna stay for an executive session.
No, I think we said we were doing that in public, right?
Yeah, they chose to do it in
Well, we
public.
did,
So
so,
we'll do it in public when it's
Oh,
Down-
yeah,
down here.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure it out.
part, right?
So we're up.
so you're all set?
You're waiting.
You're all set? All right, item 3, review and approve meeting minutes 10/16/2023. We have these off because we're new.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 16th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
I guess.
3, we weren't there, so
So you two would.
we're abstaining, 'cause we weren't there.
Abstaining.
3.
Oh, that's right.
All right, moving on. Meeting minutes from November 6th, 2023.
Make a motion,
Go ahead, sorry.
thanks. Make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from November 6, 2023.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Tom wasn't here. Moving on, item 4, payroll warrant number 18, the amount of $27,122.04.
I'll make a motion to accept payroll warrant number 18 in the amount of $27,122.04.
Second.
Tom seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, accounts payable warrant number 19 for year end 2024 in the amount of $123,583.56.
I make a motion, we approve accounts payable warrant 19 for $122,583.56.
Second.
And I would like to just point out that for municipal solid waste, $11,275.28. Recycling, $621.
I knew you would want to point that out too.
Thank you.
That is bad. Very bad. Yes. Want the recycling money to come up and the MSW to go down.
Yep.
Have you, I haven't been keeping track, but have you been keeping track of like what the average is?
It's
Is it
about-
going up or does it
It's
stay?
about the same. I think the month before was 11,000. Recycling was like 550. The month before that, it was like 12 something and 500. So,
We have a spreadsheet of all the tipping each month.
That'd be interesting.
yeah, it is interesting.
Oh, we do have to vote. I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Did that one. MDOT request approval for transporting materials project on 202.
I did call them, there's no updates right now, so they've opened the bids, they haven't selected or awarded the bid yet, so.
Is that what we were waiting for?
That's what
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah.
I remember we talked about it, we didn't do it.
All right, discussion, holiday gathering event for town hall, discussion from last meeting.
Thoughts, ideas? So it was kind of Vicky and Amber, you guys have thought of this great idea and.
Well, I do like the idea.
I'm planning it.
Yes, that's the thing. First, finding a date.
Yeah,
think-
I don't know if the holidays are appropriate.
Well, that's
because
like right
everybody's
now-
so busy.
Like Thanksgiving snuck up on me and it's Thursday now. So Christmas is going to be here before we know it. And I feel like, I wonder if maybe it's into the,
Spring fling, but.
into the new year or,
The hotel they worked at, we always used to do our Christmas party in January, because you just to get a date.
Yeah. so,
We could do a holiday party in January.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not even a holiday party, maybe we call it something else, like, I think I just heard you say open house or something else, so that get some participation if somebody's curious what things are and who people are. I think one of the big reasons to do this is because we're doing things differently than we always have. There's a lot of people that haven't met the town manager yet. There's a lot of people, they come here and do their business and they haven't met people yet.
I have seen like old pictures come up of like prior select boards where maybe they did do a Christmas party And I don't know if there was like, they must have been open to the public. There's just people like hanging around in this room. I thought was kind of cool. So,
Well, it used to be a lot more tightly knit in that, people hung out together and when I was on the board before, Georgia and I used to bring pizzas once in a while on Fridays, because everybody ate in this room together. Yes, on Fridays, but not at night, during the day.
Just checking.
During the day. And, I don't know, like, I used to stop by sometimes and eat lunch with everybody. Just on going by, and I had my lunchbox. And I don't see that happens now. When people eat at their desk.
sometimes I don't even eat lunch.
Well, I'm just saying, it's just, as things change. So I don't really know. I have thought about it some, but I haven't put my finger on it.
All right, well, TBD.
Let's go.
Okay.
You could have an open house at Funky Boat.
No, thanks.
I think that defeats the purpose.
Item 6. Fire chief? Chief.
Good evening.
Hi.
I do. All right. So you have a packet there in front of you that I brought to Lindsay this afternoon. But so we are full staff again. We hired our last full-time employee the end of October. So staffing is good. We've run 823 calls for the year so far, which is 81 calls higher year to date last year, and projecting somewhere around 930 calls, which would be 40 more calls than we ran last year. So
Is that a record?
it will be.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking when I went by the sign the other day.
Yeah, in September, we ran 106 calls in the month of September, busiest month on record. In October, we ran 62. So
Any common denominator of?
No.
All
I-
mixture?
I think, I'm hearing a lot of stuff about nursing homes being full and hospitals being full. So sick patients that typically would be in the hospitals are at home. So I think that's driven up the call volume probably across the country.
Do you know if like other towns like that you're talking to, like, Biddeford, Candyman, like are surrounding there, are they experiencing the same thing? Like, is
Yeah,
there-
everybody's
okay.
call volume is up.
Yeah.
Yep. So I did have 3 items that I was hoping to have some action on. Earlier in the month, the fire commission met. These 3 things came out of the fire commission, meeting. But speaking with Medical Reimbursement Services, who does our ambulance billing, he believes it's time for us to adjust our rates for 2023 and then again in 2024. Basically consistent with, I believe it's LD 2015. Medicare rates, they're allowed to bill up to 200% of Medicare rates. And the law there is changing it so it can only increase up to 5% a year. So if we don't increase basically 5% each year, we're going to start falling behind. The cost of fuel is going to outweigh the amount of money we make. So, and other things. That's all in the packet there. Our regulation at the fire department, along with the fee schedule, along with the letter from Medical Reimbursement Services that they provided me, does take both select boards, Lyman and Dayton's, to approve that, and Dayton has approved that this evening.
When was the last time the numbers were adjusted on the billing?
August of 22.
Can I make the motion being from the fire commission, or is there anything illegal about that? But make sure.
Make a motion.
Go ahead. I've seen all this.
Yeah.
And
I make a motion that we approve the proposed fee structure, increase to fee structure outlined on Appendix 1. Which is this chart.
See, I'm looking at it right now.
Share one what else.
Yeah.
That's the motion.
I'll second it.
Discuss. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
there we go. Good.
All right. Number 2 on my letter, the Brock Road hydrant, dry hydrant, needs to be replaced. The screen is not there anymore. Not that we put our eyes on it underwater, but we can tell by the amount of stuff we're getting to our pump panel. And that is old cast iron pipe that I don't even begin to tell you when it was installed. Everything we're doing now is PVC. So I'm looking to buy parts and pay a consulting fee out of the hydrant account, which altogether would not exceed $1,700. And the landowner is going to do the installation for us, therefore we don't pay for that.
Nice.
Very nice.
I think most of that information is in that packet as well.
I make a motion that we approve $1,700 for the replacing the piping on Brock Road for the dry hydrant.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Who's gonna be overseeing the landowner installing this?
Deputy Chief Ben Harris.
Thank you.
And this is a Lyman only expense because it's in Lyman.
That's correct.
The Rural Fire Protection of New England, the invoice, there's 3 Brock Road RFP engineering services, is $75 each.
3 hours.
3 hours, okay, thank you.
75.
It's okay. I'm like 3 services.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And number 3, Don, I don't know if you remember any of this, 10 years ago, our radio problem, but this year's capital equipment purchase in the plan that's laid out in the spreadsheet in the back is to go towards the radio system. What I'm looking to do is spend a total of $48,456 on new portable radios. Buy us 24 portable radios. As I remember, I think Don was on the fire commission back then. This is a 10-year project. Some things happen, whatnot. We ended up about 10 years ago putting a pretty decent Band-Aid on our system that allowed a little bit of new equipment to be purchased to work with our old equipment through a crossband repeater, so the cost stayed as reasonable as possible back then. But as this comes up in our plan and as our radios one by one are failing, the best plan for the fire department is to purchase all new portable radios, remove the Band-Aid, increase our abilities and our communication safety on the fire ground. put us all back on one band, so we're not relying on the crossband repeater. That can be unreliable. So and that's 50%, again, with the town of Dayton, and Dayton has also approved that this evening.
And that funding is in the capital equipment budget currently.
It is. It's in GMFR Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, I believe is what and that's the fund, just so everybody knows, that's the fund that with the ARPA money, we've committed to keeping it at an annual allocation of $32,000 or the annual deposit. And that plan marches out 15 years and stays within that.
Sticking to the plan.
Very little modifications have had to be made to that plan, to be honest with you.
That's fabulous.
But things like the Sim Man, we removed that off there because we just got a grant to be able to get the Sim Man. So we can take it out of the capital equipment program because
What
that
is
would have to
that?
lie. Simulation mannequin
Oh, okay.
for
I get it.
EMS stuff.
I wasn't getting it. Now I am.
Yep. It's actually pretty cool.
So I make a motion that we approve $24,228 to be spent out of the GMFR capital equipment budget for the purpose of replacing the radios for the fire department.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right. That's all I have unless anybody has any questions.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
You got anyone with that fire hydrant?
We are still working on the fire hydrant. Haven't lost sight of it yet, but
Did they survey?
All right, so expense refund approval.
yep.
All right, so CEO. Okay. Monthly tax. Not signing that. Treasurer's expense report. Finally, there's $30 worth of boat registrations. It was interesting. Planning board. Planning, yeah, you're right. Quarterly report. There's definitely a lot of projects going on.
Yes.
I like this, thank you.
Yeah, very cool. Town manager.
I only had a couple of things. So questions that came up at the other meeting, I wasn't here. I saw Karen present some stuff about like cameras at Kennybunk Pond. And there was a question about, foreseeable and ongoing maintenance with them. And I just wanted to clarify, she had actually contacted me about that. And that's why she gave you guys the ongoing charge of what it would cost to put in Bean's contract. So when we put that in Bean's contract, he looks at things that are going to become obsolete. He keeps track of all of our equipment devices. And as they get outdated, he usually contacts us, usually within a couple of years, like a year or two before they're outdated, and says, you need to re-up on these devices. And that's where we come up with like an IT project plan that kind of gets put on your budget. We had one last time where we talked about different devices that need to be updated. So just so you know, like if it's, that's the reason to put it in Bean's contract, is he will oversee all those things and kind of be the eyes on where, we forget.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you had any other questions about cameras and stuff like that, but they kind of were, as far as I'm aware, it's all gonna fit within their 22,000 they were originally set aside for the gate, but then they cut that gate price down. So if you guys are fine with it, they have a list, it's less than 5,000. I think it ends up being like $2,300. You know, I'd be happy to like help them purchase that stuff and get it moving along. Just want to make sure you guys are on the same page. Because I think Karen did a good job. She kind of outlined like all the stuff, and I think they're going to end up a little bit under what they anticipated, which is good.
And the price of the gate was lower because they didn't want to put all the bells and whistles
Yeah.
on it. However, it is capable of being upgraded if down the road we wanted to put bells and whistles on it.
I don't remember if it's.
I think that's.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how you guys remember, yeah.
It is.
Presentation.
Okay. That's how she got the price down.
Okay.
I don't think that place has room for bells and whistles. Put our bells and whistles at Bungana.
There you go. And I can't remember if there's any other questions that came up from the last meeting, but.
So,
Quarter reports in there. Let's go to number 7, new business, transfer station closure.
Other departments? Sorry.
Did I miss one?
No, there's always an other.
Oh, on there.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Honestly,
Sorry, miss.
Bunganet's meeting on December 11th. We graciously are going to meet with David Means, who did Kenny Bunk. He's agreed to no charge to meet with us to kind of talk about what to do with Bunganet ideas. It's such a large project, and we don't want to do it wrong. So he's offered to meet with us, give us advice, help us to kind of set us off in a direction. He has lots of contacts for grants and things that we haven't even thought of. So anyone that wants to meet, we're doing that. We're also going to be doing it with Zoom because the Y is going to come on with us, Matt, who is a plethora of knowledge. He's going to be on the Zoom call with us as well. In the comprehensive plan, I emailed actually as I was coming here, the town manager and the CEO. We're trying to have a meeting also in the beginning of December to set a Zoom policy for one of our members when they go away, and also get more of that rolling before the holidays hit, and also try to get Southern Maine Planning has tons of data. The last round is really old that we have, so we're asking the CEO and the town manager help us get an updated set of data for the comprehensive plan. That's it.
Can you give me the date of the Bunganut meeting again?
December 11th,
11th, thank you.
Yep. and the comprehensive plan hearing hasn't been set yet.
Thank you.
All right, now, item 7, new business, transfer station closure for holidays in December.
Yeah, do we want to close on Sunday so they have 2 days off for the holiday? Because I think the holiday falls on Sunday. On both Christmas and New Year's.
Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve,
Yeah.
or on Sunday, yeah.
I just know the question will come up. It always comes up at the last minute, so let's try and be
So the
proactive.
question is when do we want what?
Do you want to close? I think, did I put on there Sunday? So, please.
Gotcha.
Christmas Day is Monday, and then Christmas Eve is 24th. So normally, like, the town hall would close on Monday.
Yep.
So we would have Saturday, Sunday, Monday off.
Mm-hmm.
But the transfer station is gonna be open Saturday and Sunday. So they'll have Christmas Day open, but they won't have that advantage of, long holiday weekend like we have. So I just try to look ahead at these things every year when the holidays come up because the transfer station operates within different hours than we do, and so.
Right. And they'd be open those Saturdays, so we wouldn't be closing like the whole weekend.
Right. Something to consider.
So I guess we're 24th is what we're looking for.
24th
and
24th and
31st.
And the
31st.
Oh, and the 31st.
Because New Year's Day, like, we'll be closed, town office will be closed New Year's Day. Transfer station's already closed Mondays.
I think that's
That's the right thing to do.
I think it's the right.
I think so too.
I make a motion that we close the transfer station on Sunday, December 24th and Sunday, December 31st.
Second.
All in favor? Discuss. All in favor? All right.
It'd be 2023, right?
Yes.
All right, discussion regarding policy recruiting volunteers.
So I had been thinking of this because there was a lot of discussion, like Joe and the planning board brought up a lot about the recruiting interim policy for recruiting volunteers. And, you know, there is some conflict between different documents, your LZO and your charter. And so, you know, I would suggest one way that I can try to, you know, kind of compromise with that and try to hit on all documents is, you know, I'd be happy to sit with 2 planning board members in interviewing potential volunteers that are applying to be on the planning board. So whoever that, you know, if it's the board chair and the vice chair, or they choose liaisons of their members or whatever, you know, maybe that's one way to kind of satisfy all the documents, you know, and I'm just not comfortable like giving them copies of confidential records and then they go into executive session and, you know, but I'd be happy to have like 2 board members with me. I mean, typically what I've done with department heads, if I were hiring an assistant for a department head, is I'll do an initial screening and then I have the department head sit in with me for a second interview. So.
That's pretty common.
Good way of doing it.
It's pretty common.
I think that.
Sounds reasonable to me, but I'm just one member of the
Okay.
planning board.
So,
That sounds better than what they're doing.
So, okay.
Okay.
Do you want to do the first one in
Yep,
public and just
yep.
cover it? Okay.
Sure.
So I had emailed the chair and the vice chair of the planning board because I had a couple different things I was looking at that I wanted to address. There was mention of planning board bylaws a couple times tonight, so I do want to cover that planning board bylaws don't govern other boards or other people. It only governs planning board stuff, planning board themselves, those members. So we've discussed that a lot when we reviewed the planning board bylaws. So one was of ethical concerns, and as we move forward with, you know, trying to hire a new town clerk, you know, I have concerns about Joe Wagner's ethical standards because since I was hired as a town manager, Joe has very specifically sought after myself in my position on numerous occasions, and I would question if his behavior, you know, is borderline harassment. If we do move forward with hiring a town clerk, I just want to feel confident that Joe, you know, will not treat an employee the same way he's treated me. And some examples of that is he's used his position as a planning board member to contact MMA regarding my position specifically. Then he used his position again as planning board member to instruct the town attorney to review personnel policies adopted by the select board. I think these actions are unethical because he's using his public office for his own personal gain, being his concerns are personal to him and unrelated to planning board business.
Hold on, can I just pause for 1 second? I just want to put this out there. I don't know that this is in the specific packet that they
No, but
got,
when I-
so I just want to give an opportunity if people want to go into executive session.
Okay. Do you
That's
guys
all.
want
I
to
just
know?
want to put that out there that I don't see that in this, so I just want to
No,
make
but
sure
when
that
I
everybody's.
emailed the board chair and the vice chair, and Joe had brought this up, I did say there was like ethical concerns I wanted to discuss. So when I
Okay, yeah, I don't
reviewed,
want to.
right, FOA allows you guys to go into executive session to discuss things like employment, appointees, you know, evaluation, disciplinary and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I don't want anyone to be like, we had the conversation at the beginning. I'm not questioning what we're talking about. I just want to make sure that if anyone wants to change their mind, because I think there might have been a thought that we were talking about like these 3 things. That's all I'm saying.
okay.
So,
I think there were people that made that assumption that there, and that's why there were reasons for having it in an executive session. But assumptions, and when I saw, I mean, I didn't see this, you know, detailed information here from them until we got here. They made assumptions that this is what we were all going to talk about, and well, there were other things, and that was the reason why for an executive session. So we didn't air out dirty laundry. But
That's
they
fair.
chose not to do that, so
I
Here
just
we
want
are.
to make sure, that we're all on the same page as far as assumptions, because we know how those can work. And I just want to make sure that if anyone wants to have a different type of conversation, that we give that opportunity. That's all
I mean, I
feel like that's only fair.
originally, I wanted this to be an executive session because it's not my intent to like drive anybody through the coals or anything. I just wanted to address a concern I have, and it's more about when we work towards getting a new town clerk. And I've had some negative experiences myself and, you know, have kind of kept sticking with it, but I feel like it's important to address. So I'm fine. That's originally what I wanted to do, was an executive session.
Yeah, I know, please no, I'm not saying one way or the other, who's right, who's wrong about what's executive session, what's not. I just want everyone to have the opportunity, now that we're being very specific. That's the only thing I want to make sure, that if anyone wants to change their mind and go into executive session, that the opportunity is given. I feel like it's only fair. Okay.
Are you done?
Well, do you want to go into executive session?
No.
Okay, then I'm not done.
Okay.
So hold on a second.
Okay, I'm here.
So Joe has expressed geographical discrimination towards me publicly, commenting on my residency or lack thereof, and I don't
Joe,
feel
can you please
that,
sit down? Thank you.
I don't feel that an employee should be discriminated against them because of regional or location-based factors. Joe explicitly requested I sign his petitions when, at the time, my deputy made it very clear to him they were capable, knowledgeable, and willing to carry out the task in an expeditious manner, to which Joe declined their services, continuing to single me out for the task. And later, after I instructed my deputy to complete the task, Joe began asking my deputy questions and said, when they could not answer, he would say to them, well, I just figured since you're the deputy, which I thought was, you know, kind of discontent towards my deputy. While Joe's demeanor is not aggressive or belligerent by any means, his behavior alludes to some sort of resentment towards me. And I strongly believe, like, you have to give people a chance before you can make claim or insinuate that they are not capable of performing their duties, or that there's, you know, anything malicious intent with them. This is new territory for all of us, and I would just ask to be treated respectfully. As we move forward with changes, adding the town clerk, I just ask that Joe be respectful to all employees, including newly appointed ones, regardless of his personal feelings. Going forward with town clerk stuff, I know it's been a contentious issue, and I just want to feel comfortable that we're all on the same page and we're going to be respectful to each other, play nice in the sandbox. You know, I don't want a new employee or a new person in that role being treated the same way that I've been treated. I need to feel.
Thank you.
A chance to respond?
Yep.
Well, first off, my concern about the consolidation of town clerk and town manager was placing too much responsibility on one particular person. I've said in public in front of this board that I wanted to see Lindsay succeed, and I still do. There's absolutely nothing in terms of personal animosity on my part towards Lindsay. It was more administrative. I thought her capability of performing in the town manager job would be enhanced, if not burdened with the town clerk position. Lindsay, could you go through that list one at a time, if you please? And I could, you know, respond to each.
Okay. So you contacted MMA
As a-
regarding my position as town manager.
I contacted MMA as a private citizen, asking about the legality and propriety of consolidating town clerk and town manager.
You stated at a select board meeting, you're a planning board member. I have access to MMA. so
Which
I
was a
contacted
foolish thing
them.
for me to say,
Okay.
because it came out spontaneously. When I went on the MMA website, I was surprised to find that I had access, which I assume goes back to the time when I was in the House of Representatives. I plugged in my email, a password automatically came up, and I had access to such things as the manuals for select boards, for planning board members. And that's, you know, as a surprise to me, I kind of blurted it out in front of the board. I did not contact MMA as a member of the planning board, as I provided with documentation on the FOA request, I believe from you, Michelle. It was as a private citizen, and you contact Kate before up there to confirm that if you wish.
Yeah, and I believe they responded that they don't answer citizen requests. I just thought it was a little curious that you would kind of go above and beyond. And I know that you may, you want me to be successful and everything, and you're concerned of my, ability to perform my duties, but, you've never come and talked to me about that. You've never stopped and asked me, how are you doing? You've never asked my deputies, how are you guys holding up? How are you doing? You're kind of making an assumption. And although, I have no problem whatsoever modifying government and how we function, I just, I look at the bigger picture. I want things to work effectively.
I'm sorry,
So-
Lindsay, have I said anything critical
No,
to you directly or to
It's
me?
not been belligerent by any means.
Okay.
It's just a very curious matter. Like if I go through a timeline, you're driven towards me in my position since I've been appointed to this position.
I've been driving to separate the town clerk's position from the town manager's position. That's been my goal. Go ahead. What next?
I do feel because you're using your position as a planning board member to contact MMA,
Again, that was it.
Yep.
Go ahead.
that you're kind of using that office of power, for your own personal gain. I know you have your own personal concerns and you have every right to feel that way and address those concerns. I just thought it was odd that you would seek the town's legal access.
With respect to,
MMA, we pay for MMA membership.
all right, again, I contacted someone I knew back in the days when I served up in Augusta. I contacted that individual as a private citizen, just again, asking about the propriety, how frequently has MMA seen this type of combination?
Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to get back to, the kind of this, her view, your view. And, I wrote it when Dawn was up here and I wrote it again here. You're concerned about the administrative workload on her. But, it's been said in many meetings, why aren't we just giving this a chance? Okay, the town clerk issue has been a hot potato ever since it happened. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's emotional on many levels. It was a decision that was made by the board. Agree or disagree, it was well thought out. There were workshops that were out here. I sat through every single one of them. We discussed it in detail. We laid out everything. The accusations that have come back on what we did and why we did it, I'm not going to go into it.
Have you heard any of those from me?
I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying this has been an emotional issue. Okay, you've picked up the ball for some particular reason, okay, to say she is not able to do the job. From an administrative perspective, you're worried about her doing it. We're only 5 months into her employment here. Have not seen any, and I keep tabs on her as the vice chair and the HR liaison on a regular basis to see how things are going. Call, not on a daily basis, on every other day basis, because that's what I'm supposed to do. If there was a concern, I would definitely flag it. I just see every meeting, it's just going, it appears, okay, in a diplomatic way, you're very diplomatic, I'll give you that, Joe, okay, that it's just always at that position and not being able to handle it. I don't think we've given it a chance. If at the end of the year or there's something egregious that happens and they go, aha, if anybody's looking for that aha moment, well, maybe then we can talk about it. But at this point in time, I don't think she's, that position has been overloaded. Plus, she's reorganizing in here. So in any corporation, they do that. So that's, I think, we're a lot where she's coming from.
Now, here's where I'm coming from. Not from any aspect with the persons in the past involved, just pure administration. My perception was that the majority of the select board was saying that 1 + 1 + 1 can equal 1. That what had been for the most part, full-time positions, town clerk and select board clerk, could be combined into a brand new, very laden with authority position, responsibility position, town manager could all be combined into one. And I am still skeptical about it. And that's why I've been pushing, separation with the town clerk's position, a town clerk who would do other duties as the previous one did, working in the counter and such, so that the town manager would be freed from those responsibilities to do such things as pursue as many grant proposals, many grant programs as possible to alleviate the tax burden on the town.
Yeah,
Not personal, administrative, managerial. I'm sorry I can't help it a little bit because I've got a master's degree in public administration. Whoop-de-doo. But that is the lens that I use to look at this situation.
And that's fine. That's your, but it has caused such an issue.
Mhm.
And it's hard to run a business, and that's what this is a business, to run
Indeed.
a town, when you have this constant, oversight. I don't even I know the right term for it. But like she said, she's second guessing things. Is she capable? Is she this? People are questioning that. There's a lot that comes out of, and of course, our most favorite thing of social media that gets it going after. You're not on it. I'm not on it. But guarantee you, I'm not. It just then it takes on a life of its own, and it just and that's gospel. Of course, it is. On social media, it's gospel. Everything's true. Okay. So it gives, and once again, I'm really sensitive to the employees in this building, and we've come a long way from 2 years ago the way we were, and that this new government that has started off in a really good, positive way. I think Michelle in her statement today, the way the elections went. Was smooth.
Good.
And the perception of employees, of townspeople was very positive. So I get the give a chance. That's all I'm looking at.
Okay.
And I think that's what Lindsay's looking at also.
Aren't we kind of moving the direction of resolution here? Now discussion in terms of, filling a town clerk's position to some extent. Moves, I think, in a mutually agreeable direction.
Yeah, and I just want to be sure that, there may be a new town clerk and that.
And
you
I
know,
would
that
treat
they're
that
not gonna
individual,
be,
Lindsay,
you know,
as I treat you and everyone else.
If their
The way I
deputy
was brought up.
says, I can do this work for you, that you're not going to single out that town clerk
What
and
do you
say, no, I want you to do it.
No. Maybe we should have some conversations because if you did know me, and I think as others do, that's not in my personality.
Well, I'd love to have conversations with you. And then, everything that you've brought up to the board, you've never addressed them with me personally.
Well, it's a situation where the citizen brings the issue to the policy-making body, which is the board.
Now, it's also the town manager. So the town manager creates policies and then the board approves them if you read through the charter. So it just, it appears, you may be, I understand you may have a different viewpoint of things and I can respect that. And I respect, the whole citizens petition. I think that's very commendable that you put forth all that work in doing that. And that's why, right as that was approved the next day, I started looking at the bigger picture and saying, all right, now how are we going to make this work? And I'm a facts and data person. I have to lay it out and see the bigger picture. I'm not going to make a knee-jerk reaction, decide the next day what this. But just things like, policy and procedure. My door is always open. If you want to ask me a question, when I put out, we'd have an executive session, give me a call if you need to. Don't hesitate to contact me. I always make sure to let people know, you can always call me. Don is an open book and I love him because he'll just come right in my office and say.
There's not much content there is the only problem.
Right, but that's respectable because he will come to me directly. And I'm okay with working with people directly on things. Just, it feels like an attack when you wait 2 weeks to bring it to the board, when the whole 2 weeks you could have just called me and asked a question, right?
I don't, on what occasion, what specific
But just in general,
In general,
like I'm
okay.
saying,
I
you'll
see.
come up and question interim policy that I wrote. So why wait 2 weeks to address that with the board when you could just ask, the town manager?
See, that's where I think we have a little bit of a divergence of perception. To me, those who are elected make the policy in conjunction with the executive, but the executive by and large carries out the policy.
It says in the charter
I know
that the
that.
town manager develops the policies and the board has the authority to approve them.
You know,
So it's I see it a little
Well,
backwards.
I looked at it this way from a very basic point of view. The legislative body makes the policy, indeed in conjunction with the administration. Ultimate authority is here. Ultimate authority is with the people of the town.
They work here 2 days a month. I'm here 5 days a week.
I think that was the big reason that we really went for town manager type government.
For the
because
day-to-day.
We're all part-timers here that we don't have,
Yes, we-
case in point, I'll bring it right up. When I came on here, gosh darn it, I have experience in personnel and I was made the liaison with him and HR and I've got $5,500 and we're gonna go get a personnel policy rewritten and get it into place because that's what these people need. Yeah, it went nowhere. I tried to use the $5,500. It was $150, $125 to $150 an hour to use the consultant. It wasn't going to get you anything. So it kind of died. Oh, wait a minute. We have a new person that comes on board, Jessica, who has a big HR background with where she works. She says, I will take it and I will redo it. Guess what? She's a part-timer just like me. We never got that done. So now we go to this part of government here. She has the time to do it. We can utilize the consultant. She can be our point person to get this thing done, then come back and let us review it, tweak it, and what have you. I think that's the way it works as a team that we try to really nurture here in this building. And, you can view it how, I understand the way you're viewing it, but with us and it's no disrespect to any of the board members, but we're just part-timers. We all have jobs. So this is why it's so good to have Lindsay here. So
I voted in favor
Yeah.
wholeheartedly for the town manager.
But I just
position.
think these things need to be brought out. We've been talking about, this has gone on just way too long and it's time to clear the air.
I think we're moving in that direction. Are we not?
I never heard you talk about Lindsay in a personal way. It was always the position. That's how I've admired how you carried yourself in this. It's hard to come, you say it's been emotional and it's been all these things and it very well has been. But the way he has presented himself and the way he's done it in my eyes in that and exercising the way things go, doing the petition drive, and we talked about it. It started on the town meeting floor, talking about separating the positions because of the level of accountability that is being lost by having it not be a separate position. And
I don't
and
disagree.
I understand it. I'm taking it totally valid what you're saying. If you're saying it, and this is how you felt that these things have gone on, I recognize and I respect that. But it kind of came out of left field to me because I have not heard him speak anything badly about you, and all the talk usually is about the position.
I remember on one occasion, Lindsay, you said that Don and I challenged you about the interpretation of the charter with respect to general election. All three of us were on the same page. We wanted it to be a situation where every annual election, we'd have the opportunity to make some changes to the LZO. But our position was, and I think we all agreed too, that the charter is here, the LZO is here, and all other policies that are made by the board to implement those voter ratified documents of subservient to those two. What we were looking at was a potential conflict between the hiring situation. What you suggest in terms of bringing a couple of planning board members on for the interview process sounds great to me.
And my door's always open. We can talk
Yeah.
those things out and have conversations about it. And with respect to like, I think I remember that conversation, we had talked about that. I had made a timeline for ORC and I had recognized, okay, you have, the LZO says the planning board has to have a public hearing to amend or adopt an ordinance.
Mhm.
And then the charter says that the ORC has to have 3 public hearings.
Right.
My recommendation was, well, just to meet all documents, why not have the planning board, do a joint public hearing
Mhm.
with the ORC? That way you meet all the documents with,
Mhm.
even though they conflict with each other. And I remember the conversation was, well, if the charter supersedes this, then it's the ORC.
Mhm.
And I don't really care. I was just making a recommendation that, well, this is, how I look at, how do you move it across all the documents in the most efficient way? So.
I think the point is, if we, disagreement over interpretation of regulation or law is not a personal affront. It's a difference of opinion.
It sure is. But again, I'm just going to go back to, when you come to every single board meeting and you make very specific discussion about my position and, you've made reference of how burdened I would be having to, interview volunteers and employees, and you've made a lot of references specifically of me, but you've never once come to me and said, hey, I want to check in and see how you're doing. There are other people in the community that have, very similar concerns as your own, but they, came to me and said, how is it working out? I just kind of want your perspective. So you've not once ever done that, but you do, and I have to question, why would you hold off 2 weeks of trying to answer some of your concerns when coming directly to me, but you insist on waiting to bring it to the board. And that's, your view of it. I understand it. I don't
Okay.
want to go back and forth and,
Right.
Keep kicking this around.
Yep.
But, my point of addressing the concerns was, one, using your office of power, to try to instruct the town attorney to do things that weren't planning board related, I thought was a little wishy-washy. And then just the general way I've been treated. And I want to make sure when we do have another town clerk, that person can get, they may be new to their role. They might have to learn how to do things. They might do things differently than I did or anyone else did in the past. And I just want to give people a chance so we can succeed and be open to other people.
I will treat that person as I treat everyone else. And just a quick one in terms of legal advice. To my recollection, I think Rod the same. The budget committee had asked the planning board for input in terms of putting the budget together, and we put in $4,000 or $5,000 for legal expenses because it pops up on a regular basis, such that they're going to the board and asking for permission. Sometimes isn't all that feasible, particularly when we don't want to delay an already delayed project any further. Okay. And as far as I can recall, that $5,000 had been set aside. So when I asked Brad Martin for his opinion on the potential conflict between the LZO and the charter, I thought it was well within our ability to do so.
I mean, I saw the planning board question specific policies that the select board has approved and, specific things in the charter. It just wasn't very land use related. It was, it had to do with board policy. So I would say the board has that discretion if they want to spend money on legal review. If you have concerns, you can always bring them to me. We can always talk about it. I can always bring it to the board. It just seemed, you took an opportune moment when Brad was there, not for that reason, and then pulled him in to something totally different. And to me, it didn't have anything to do with land use. So yes, you do have a legal line and you can use that for questions that come up with subdivisions and whatnot. But
Well,
this
this is
wasn't
about
a
the-
subdivision question.
It was about the interpretation of one section of the Lyman zoning ordinance, which we are bound to abide by. Anyway.
Well, I think I've come up with a nice compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yes,
we
you
didn't
did.
need to get an attorney involved in that. Again, it's just, if you bring those conversations to me, my door's open.
Mhm.
Like, I have no
It's
problem.
a two-way street as well. You've got my email.
Yes.
So I just want to confirm, because there still seems to be this issue of what supersedes what. To me, when I'm sitting here, I think of the charter is what we're governed by.
Right.
So, and you did, charter here, LZO here,
Mhm.
but in regards to a question that Lindsay had, you guys disagreed about it. It was the interim policy, like she's the policymaker according to the charter.
Mhm.
But you interpreted that differently. So then the charter's out the window.
Oh, by no means. The one section of the LZO deals with a conversation that a applicant would have with the board, and we would send our recommendations to the select board. Now that we have the town manager position in there, I think we can integrate all of that together. What I'm saying is that the charter trumps the land zoning ordinance when there is a very clear conflict. I didn't see it as a conflict. So it's something that can be complementary.
So the charter stating that the town manager writes the policies, brings it to the board for approval.
Mhm.
You still disagree with that?
No, but again, you have that in the, we're unique, I think, among all the boards and committees that we have that provision right there in the voter-approved Lyman zoning ordinance that the planning board has some involvement in the process.
Maybe you misspoke because you did say that they're the legislative body, so
Right.
you wouldn't go to her for policy. You'd only go to them. So maybe you
No.
misspoke, so just clarifying, that's exactly what
Yeah,
I heard
that's-
as well. That you would go to the legislative body because they're the ones that decide, the decisions maker, even though the charter says the town manager is the policy maker, they're the approvers. That's why you come every weekend.
I see.
I'm just telling you what I
No.
heard, which is what Amber was repeating, so
Mhm.
just in case you misspoke, that's
No, I did not
was my
misspeak.
words that.
No, it's a
So she's
situation
asking
where
if you're still disagreeing.
policy is a collaborative effort.
She's just asking you if you disagree with policy though.
Yeah, well, I
With
mean,
that
the
particular
charter says that the town manager writes the policy, so it's not really a collaborative agreement. She writes the policy, we either approve it or we don't,
Mhm.
They can veto it.
you know?
That's like Tom said, they could tweak it, they could say,
Mhm.
So I just want to make sure that we're all clear, like the charter is,
Right.
the top of the, okay, that's,
We're clear there.
okay. And then go ahead.
The way I understood what he said was the town manager who writes the policy, you approve the policy, which means you, the select board, have the authority on the procedure. She writes it, you approve it.
Yeah.
If she
Yeah,
writes it,
or
you
not.
don't like it,
Why not?
or
Yeah,
if she writes
I think
it
you said that.
and you don't.
Yeah.
That's the way I understood what he was saying.
It's not a policy until it's approved.
And to me,
Correct.
that's
Correct.
collaboration.
Yes,
I think
Right.
everyone
yes.
agrees.
I
Okay.
think, I've got a bunch of comments here that
It's
I'm
not the
rather,
same thing, because you guys approve it.
No, I think we're saying the same thing. She
So
writes
you're the
it, we
boss.
approve it.
But he's
Right.
saying that's why it only comes to them and not her the 2 weeks in advance. That was the whole rabbit hole.
Well, yeah, if I may, yeah, when I stand up here and give my comments every 2 weeks, is it always on this issue of the town clerk?
excuse me?
Is it always exclusively on the issue of the town
Pretty
clerk?
close.
I would
Well,
have
yeah.
to go back to, I'd watch some
Yeah.
more, I would want to watch the meeting since June and really percentage it out.
Mhm.
It'd be a pretty high percent.
I've made offers.
along, please?
Okay, yes, let's go. What,
I think, yeah.
Tom is next?
I know you have a beer waiting for you, but that's why we went, this was gonna get aired out,
Mhm.
okay?
I think it's been aired out.
Well, we have Mr. Ticho here also as the chair, and
Can't you guys go in a room and talk?
That's what I was trying to do.
that's what we asked to do
Okay.
earlier, it was decided another way.
Okay.
I think that, I have other comments that they're all on the negative side, and I'm not gonna, because I think we're going in the right direction,
Mhm.
okay? And what I'm hearing is, and it kind of is something that I was hoping that was gonna come out of this, be it now here or the executive session, is that there seems to be this, for lack of better terms, a rivalry between the planning board and us, the select board. It always seems.
Okay, go
See,
ahead. Good.
wait a minute, let me see. Snide comments Okay, that's my top one. You know, just, you know, not kidding. It's always that. It's always that. Okay. I see what I like to see, what I'm seeing for me is a working relationship. I see that this is, I don't know, maybe my first time I've seen something like this, you know, a report out of what's going on. And I've been a big one asking for reports from all committees. And I'm going to talk to Lindsay afterwards. I think everybody under committees, everyone, Bunganut, charter, not charter,
Comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive.
Yeah.
Okay, planning board, and that, you know, we can't make it every meeting because everybody has a, you know, but have something here so we know what's going on. I don't want your job. You know, being a chair of anything is difficult. I get it. It's not you know, you got a job to do. Yes, we all get paid peanuts. You know, you said you got paid minimum wage. Well, so do we. You're beyond a lot less than minimum wage when you put our hours into it. We get it, that we're here to serve the public.
Right.
Okay. And if the public's looking at us all kind of infighting, I don't think that's a real positive thing. And that's every time I come away from it, it's like, it just seems like it's just this as opposed to this. And I think if we have more of this, we'll get along a heck of a lot better. We're always going to disagree on things. Everybody's not, it's not going to be kumbaya all the time. But, you know,
Well, it isn't. I'm out of here.
you know, one of the things that on some of the stuff that was put down of discussion on some of your projects, my main concern is the legality of, or the chance that the town is going to get sued.
Yeah.
Things have been getting heated more and more over time since I've been here. It always seems to be heading towards lawsuits. So I just wanted, my comment was going to be, you know, you guys have a job ahead of you. You guys, you know, you have to have different types of knowledge that we don't have. We have to rely on you as a board. Okay. I just wanted to just see of some of these things that have come up that are really hot topics to be cautious.
Understood.
You know, because of legal, you know, I remember when I first started, everybody was after our, oh my God, the legal fees on the budget is skyrocketing. Well, when it gets controversial, those legal fees are going to go up. And that was where I was going to go in these topic areas that Dawn wrote a dissertation on here, that it was just, that's our job so we don't have to, you know, put the town in harm's way from a legal perspective.
Well, I think we're on the same frequency, Tom.
Yeah.
You know, we're on the same team in terms of serving the public. Yeah. We will have disagreements, and when we do have a disagreement, it's not personal. Okay. Nope. And we are very conscious about the potentiality for lawsuits, and we operate, the planning board does, with that very much in mind. And to avoid that.
It's a good segue into the next one, which I did give you guys, and it's because it's public record anyways, some decisions and meeting minutes and stuff I gathered. And the reason why I was looking at this is because, you know, I see planning boards as having a lot of power. They probably have more power than the select board does because, you know, they exercise authority over residents' property rights. So when I got looking through and some things had come up, I wasn't sure if you guys are really applying the zoning ordinance, and maybe you are, so correct me if I'm wrong. But, you know, like MX 207, there's a lot of discussion about campgrounds. And when I looked at their site plan review, there's no mention of campgrounds at all. So I'm not talking about their current ongoing site plan review because it doesn't have anything to do with campgrounds. But I'm wondering, did they submit a site plan review to the planning board for campgrounds? Because under it requires a site plan review according to the land use table. If I look at commercial residential district campgrounds, and then if you look at the definition of a campground, it's a business establishment operated as a recreational site for tents, trailers, recreational vehicles, or other forms of temporary shelter. So I'm just curious, like it's going to be one Hatfield versus McCoy situation that kind of blows things out of proportion. So I'm wondering, do you guys have that?
Brenda?
Can I just say that that subject did come up. The state of Maine defined campgrounds out there as temporary campgrounds, which is regulated on a per event type thing. So they have to apply to the state of Maine for every event in which they're gonna have campers. So that really didn't fall under the town because the state was regulating it.
See, it does not say temporary.
But that's how it was explained to the board.
To me, when I look at an ordinance, like what the planning board reviews, is it either complies with the ordinance or it doesn't comply. And this I can see coming up as a potential question is, do they have the, permitting for a campground? And I know our ordinance is being reviewed and, it needs a lot of revamping, but you kind of have to work with the documents you have at hand.
We do.
So, but the way the state of Maine looked at it, a campground is an area that is dedicated to being a campground. It will have hookups, it will have picnic tables, it will have bathroom facilities, it will have all the things. Believe it or not, the state of Maine really regulates campgrounds down to how many picnic tables you must have, how many fire pits you must have. And because this is what they call a temporary campground, it's by an event that a few campers will come in. They're self-contained. There are no hookups. There are no bathroom facilities. There's no water. They have to meet certain criteria from state overview. The state permits that for just that event. So if he has an event every single weekend, he has to reapply every single weekend. So it just seems like that doesn't fall under our definition even a little bit.
Does he? Does
Hold
he?
on.
Does he
He
apply every weekend for every
Yes.
weekend?
But here's the thing,
Yes.
though. We can be more restrictive than the state statute, not less restrictive. So if I was a neighbor to that parcel and I was upset with them, I may question that and say, it doesn't say temporary in our ordinance. And maybe we need, the ORC needs to look at that language and how things are defined. Because if and we ran into this problem with Cousin's School and the definition of professional offices. And while the planning board, and I commend you guys for being flexible with property owners and, trying to work with them so that they can do the things they need to do. But then it came into question was, now they can't get a certificate of occupancy because it doesn't fall under the definition. So how is it that the definition of property of professional offices, is so strict, but campgrounds, we can just go revert to state statute? I just look at, this is the language in your ordinance.
Right.
It doesn't say anything about temporary, it doesn't say anything about event, it just says campgrounds, and to me, that could be anything, and we can be more restrictive than state statute, but not less.
The campers on that site are very, very secondary to the primary.
I mean, what's done is
on that
done, I would move on from it, I'm just calling it to question that
All right.
these are the things I look at, go,
I bet you the chief would argue with that.
The chief
Oh, no.
was there for every meeting.
I know the meetings, but I mean the reality of when you go over there on a Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah.
On what is actually happening over there. That's how I got involved in it initially. Of what is, paper, what's on paper and what to do, yes to do. That's one thing. What's actually going on over there is another. Now you corrected it, thank goodness, and it's made a difference, once again, for the town with the ambulance service.
Yes.
I mean, that was a burden on this town, financially and liability wise for any of us that needed to be transported to the hospital because they were taking care of that. That was a wonderful thing to catch but this other stuff that I've heard, the stories up there, I haven't witnessed it myself, but I have heard from the chief on that, of what goes on there. And so that's kind of,
So it's like anything. If you take anything out of context, you can make it say whatever you want it to say. And some of these things, there were many, many meetings. And you take a few words here and a few words there, and you don't understand the progression of what happened. And I think the town is more concerned with the use that they are permitted for. And they're meeting the criteria, the dialogue's been wonderful. No, one neighbor has said a word about anything.
and that's great. My only concern is it either complies with the ordinance or it doesn't. I just want to make sure, because the planning board is the reviewing authority of like site plan review applications, subdivisions and all that stuff. So it's up to the planning board. And I had questioned also, did you guys issue a temporary permit? Is there a copy of the signed temporary permit? Where does it say in the ordinance that you have the authority to grant a temporary permit?
By the direction of the planning board, I did check with the attorney on that dialogue, and he said that they don't need a temporary permit, that the CEO would either do a stop work order or not. And I decided not until the process could be followed through and a resolution made.
Can I make a comment on this? I submitted written answers to the town manager's question. I'm not gonna read those or anything, but, this MX 207, the choice was, and I think unfortunately, I made the motion to issue a temporary permit in April of 23. The choices were shut them down. This is an ongoing business that has just starting its season. Now, we could have, I guess the planning board could have said, hey, you guys, that's it, you're shut down, okay? Or was there some way to see if the applicant was willing to work with the planning board and the fire chief to meet the safety requirements, et cetera? The applicant was willing to do that. And by the way, the previous, there was some issues with the previous, I think it was a notice of decision when it was issued. It was confusing because there was one issued in 08 that said the conditional use permit is valid for 3, for instance, 10 years. And so there was some confusion about this whole thing. And there was a lot of discussion on it. I think a lot of honest effort put into correcting the problems, as long as the applicant was moving forward to meet the safety requirements primarily. And I think everybody's learned a lot on this particular project, and it's not done yet. We're still getting the public hearing scheduled, I think, in December. And it's easy to get behind on some of these things, but this thing's been going on for a long time. We're all trying to get it wrapped up, I think, in a reasonable manner that provides the town with protection, but also allows the applicant, who has significant money invested in this, to continue his operations as long as it's done safely. So, I mean,
It should be commended for doing a good job of creating a path so that.
I don't know, maybe that's illegal.
I
but-
think you did a great job, and I don't think it was illegal.
Can I go to the next one here? I can cover these things and just get them out. There's 3 questions that the town manager raised.
So, I'm with the rest of this, Commissioner, just throw one thing out. One thing that I think you have appreciation for is the notion of inheritance. Policies in the past, continuing use permits that we don't use anymore. It's a site plan review. So we have, in the case of NX 207, the last cup was 08. It expires, it lapses, but there's uncertainty as to how we go about renewing that, coming up with a new notice of decision with all that may have changed over the course of that time period. So again, it's trying to catch up with stuff in the past. I'm sorry.
And I also, I don't think you guys haven't worked hard on these things. I think you have, you definitely have been trying to be flexible and work within, people who bring your stuff. But I'm seeing, if I go across these 3 different ones, I see one person being treated differently than another person, is one thing I see. And then with MX 207, I'm really more concerned about the campground activity more than anything. And I'm fine with, we leave it as is and we move on, but I just wanted to bring that concern up that, does that comply with the ordinance or not comply with the ordinance? And, if it were me, I'd question it, but.
And from my perspective, and I think you and I, when I say this, what I mean, you're going through a lot recently on a lot of different inheritance of old stuff that, and, documentation is the most important thing. So your decisions or your change in decisions or whatever it may be should be documented in that file. So 6 months down the road, or that beer truck comes running into somebody.
That's my line.
I know, that we know where your thought process was
And I
on
think it's
that.
pretty well documented in the minutes.
Yeah.
In the minutes.
Yeah.
And those go in the folder.
Yeah.
So anyone that wants to go and see, what transpired,
what, 7 or 8, 9 sets of minutes.
Yeah.
It's hard not to figure out what happened.
Check the video.
Can I mention the other two here? Not that I'm trying to rush you along.
But you are.
I am. But the YMCA, there was a question about issuing a permit on the YMCA to have a one-week camp. And the problem with that is that it came on the 12th of July for a camp that was going to be from the 17th to the 21st. It was on private property. The fire chief got involved and was satisfied with safety precautions, and we probably did not follow all the requirements of the Lyman zoning ordinance, because we did not require the applicant to request in writing a waiver, and we didn't hold a public hearing. We could not have held a public hearing under the requirements of the ordinance in the time available. So the question, again, there we were, we could have said, okay, you guys, you screwed up. Sanford YMCA CEO came to us and said, okay, you guys screwed up, you can't have the camp. That was one choice. The other choice was to allow them to have the camp. And that should probably have, maybe should have been documented better in writing, better than it was. But it was a decision that came on short notice. Again, we try to work with the applicant. It seemed like it was going to be done safely. Now, maybe this property has got some other issues with it. Apparently, there are some issues with it, but that was a decision the planning board made. Now, do we have the authority in that? I guess we could have said no, go to the select board, go to the town manager, bye. We could have said that. We didn't say that.
The property owner had provided us with a copy of the contract from Mr. Wozelinski and a copy of the insurance binder, so I felt like that covered what we needed. And I also, I got that issue from Lindsay the day I got it from Lindsay. There happened to be a planning board meeting that night, and I ran it by Lindsay and said, I'm going to ask for a temporary permit for 1 week, and you didn't express any concern then, so I felt like we had it covered. I think with the contract and the electrical inspector went down and took a look. Of course, the kiddos weren't using buildings. It was outside, and who's any safer in a swimming area than kids with a Y? Those people know how to save lives. So we saw where they would be dropped off. We saw where they were going to do their crafts. We saw where if someone was being unruly, where he would be entertained for a little while. And we saw where they would, if they were homesick and needed mom, where they'd go. We saw the whole process. Fire chief went down, electrical inspector, and I went down. And I feel like we covered all the bases.
So I did not, I don't really recall the conversation a little bit, but, I was select board clerk then also, so I didn't really have I don't have, even the town manager doesn't have authority over the purview of the planning board. So it kind of comes down to the planning board decision. When I look at, the thing of events, it's very clear under the standards of site plan review. It says, site plan review standards shall only be waived upon written request by the applicant and shall only be considered after public hearing. So unless I'm wrong, and feel free to correct me, I don't see anywhere in the ordinance that grants the planning board authority to waive it in that regard, like, well, you're short on time constraints and we'll just let you do it. And when I think about like other property owners, what if somebody else came to the board and they said, I want to open up this convenience store and it requires site plan review, but I just want to do a pilot program, and maybe if I could just do that first and then I'll come back later and I'll do a site plan review. I know the board's not going to allow everybody to do that. And, I think it's wonderful what the YMCA does, but I look at this so I got a letter that was sent to the property owner saying, there's concerns, there was a 911 call, they couldn't figure out which building it was. And then 2 days later, the planning board approves, the YMCA to bring a bunch of kids there. It's not, the YMCA did a great job explaining their camp and everything. And so the planning board said, well, it's under outdoor recreation, so we'll let it happen. And again, if you go to the land use table, outdoor recreation says it requires a site plan review. And so I go back to, how do you modify site plan review? Well, it says right here, it's very specific and very clear. But the planning board made a motion, they let it happen. Well, then a few days later, the electrical inspector wants to write a letter to the owner saying this is a concern. he has all these, modifications to this property. I feel it's a liability, and I'm getting a purchase order to hire York County Sheriff to serve the letter to the property owner because he's not responding to the certified mail. And to me, it's like, how can you say on one end, this property is a danger or it's a liability, and on the other end, we're gonna send YMCA over there with a bunch of kids? And I understand, like, there's more to it, but I just have concerns that this is an example. You're giving somebody special treatment because they came in and they pretty much lobbied for, they said, please, 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 and you let them do it. But what's going to happen when another person comes in and the board says, no, you have to follow the rules? But you have to be very consistent. And that's where I feel like it either complies with the ordinance or it doesn't.
So we should have shut down the business, is what you're saying?
Have them cancel the program and get all the money back?
I would have said, I'm sorry, this is what the ordinance says.
Well, I would have said to the YMCA, why are you want to run a program in 5 days? And this is the first time we're hearing about it?
They didn't know that they had to, and they had called, somebody had said evidently that you need a gathering permit or something, so they called Lindsay to find out if you need to get it. And I said,
Talk to Brenda.
So this business had been open for probably 30 years.
I think we're talking about two separate things. This is the YMCA.
What I would have done, I would have questioned that because I was called at work by the electrical inspector about that property. I don't believe it was about the Y. It was about the bridge, the electrical, the permits, this. You and I talked about this and how the landowner, the property owner was treating you and everything. I would have said, what are you doing? So, until tonight, I didn't know the two were.
But remember, no, one child was not within one building on that property, ever. Okay, and the bridge is over on a completely different area. The kids are over here on the beach. The bridge is in a completely different area. The children would have no reason to even be in that area. That was all checked out by people, especially the fire chief, that have safety as a major concern, and it's what they understand best. So it wasn't, we just said, oh, sure, go ahead, have a great time, go at it.
Well,
I understand that, and if it wouldn't have been flagged for me if it wasn't that name. It's not like it's John Smith, that Muscatawa, it's one that stands out, and I remember getting called on it.
The buildings were not used anyway, just the beach area.
And no one would have known that because there was no notice of decision. There was nothing documented. Like,
it's in the minutes.
No, it's not. It's not all the stuff you just said. None of that's in the minutes. So, I think having good communication, good documentation, it's just the other thing is like, yes, we have to have hard conversations sometimes, and it sucks. You guys are in a position of power. And, so people are going to try to, and I'm not saying this is what the YMCA did, but people will try to manipulate or pull at your heartstrings because you're in a position of power.
One thing I want to, if I may,
She's smiling.
the best thing that I think I've gotten to my time since 2012 on the planning board is sitting next to Don Herman, who is an absolute skeptic. Every applicant that comes before us, we take the application with a grain of salt, realizing that they want to do something that has to be within the rules and regulations of the Lyman zoning ordinance.
Well, it doesn't mean we get it right all the time, but
Right.
can I just make a comment about Cousin School? Can we move to Cousin School now?
By the way,
I have something, I have an industry thing. No disrespect, a kid can go anywhere. First day of school, I think my son was in kindergarten. Kid went missing, they had to call a rescue, get a dog. The kid ate how many miles in the woods? Buildings might not have been used, but someone who I've seen lawsuits for 30 years, one kid decides to get off because they can, and they do, kids do kid stuff. Check out a building that's faulty and something happens. If we gave a permit, we're going in.
And this isn't about like the YMCA. I have full faith that like they run a really tight program. They do a great job. But there's nothing in the ordinance that says somebody can go to the planning board and, just get approval like that. So
It does say they can do waivers.
Right, right. And as I read out loud, so there shall be written requests and there shall be a public hearing. Shall is the key word. It does not say, or at the discretion of the planning board, any other conditions. So those things, I've been told, because Joe has come to a couple meetings and he said, the town clerk keeps the town out of court. And I'm just looking, I'm fine, this is done, it's over with. But going forward, I don't want to see, I want to see things like that there's a proper process. And no, you're not going to get it right every single time, and that's okay. But, the ordinance is here, so we treat everybody the same way.
It's continuity.
I think that's basically what we're here, I think that's what I'm hearing is there's not always the same for everybody. If everybody comes in, it should be the same for everybody. If you're gonna wave a fence at a marijuana grow, you should wave it for everybody. I'm just saying that.
You're mistaken, because the ordinance states that when we do something, it doesn't set a precedent.
Well, the ordinance states if you want to waive something, it has to be in writing.
She's right on that. Can we move to Cousin School, please? Please. I think you can wrap this thing up here. I think I've got the point, but let me just give you a quickie on Cousin School. Okay, this was one, now, no offense, Lindsay, but you're often part of that.
Thank you.
That my memo. But anyhow, that's it, you sort of get like me. Anyway, no, you're not old enough. Anyway, we had approved a notice of decision for Cousin School under the category of professional offices, which has those weasel words in there. It lists a whole bunch of professional office things like lawyer, God, who said that? He's not here. But anyway, all these other people, and it says, but not limited to. And whether we should, hindsight is wonderful, whether the planning board should have approved the Cousin School modification under the term professional offices, which is allowed in that zone, is a question for discussion. But anyhow, we did approve it, and they went forth, and the notice of decision had specific things in there about, they talked about redoing the septic system, they talked about redoing the sprinkler system, they being the applicants. Okay, a year later, they'd had some issues, and we've had this one other project, I think, where the person could not get services from electricians or other people. They asked for an extension, and we gave an extension. Whether that's not covered, to my knowledge, in the Lyman zoning ordinance anyway. So we gave an extension on the septic system. And then the applicant said, hey, we don't need the sprinkler system, and provided documentation, made the fire chief check it out. And so we said, okay, we got to modify the notice of decision. And then we started talking about what does the words professional offices mean? And the issue, I think one of the issues was that the code enforcement officer said, hey, I want a better definition here. So we had a lot of discussion, we involved the town lawyer. I think, God, I hope, we have the wording that's acceptable so that the CEO can issue permits with good conscience. And we did get the lawyer involved. We're going to be discussing this at the next planning board meeting. So the reason for requiring this applicant, or not requiring him, but to modify the notice of decision on this applicant is because they did not want to comply, and hit logical reasons, with the conditions that were stated regarding the septic and then the sprinkler systems. So, I mean, I think as best possible, and we had their lawyer here and our lawyer here talking about it. And I had to bite my tongue if I'm going to talk about the applicants, okay? Because I'm not going to talk about the applicants, okay? I'm not talking about them, but this was a trying experience, let me put it that way. And we did work with them. Now, this gets back to the zoning ordinance. And I'll tell you, the zoning ordinance is not going to get changed anytime soon because of the process that's been put in place by the new charter. And it's going to be an ongoing battle to use the ordinance as written, 100% lock it down. And if that's what the outcome of this is, then we work with a lot of applicants throughout the last few years. If you look at the corner of 35 and 111, there's two examples right there. Those were not simple projects. They were professionally done, though, much better than some projects we get. So that's one example. We worked with a guy who wanted to issue stickers on his property. He had very hands-drawn stuff, so we didn't require a professional architect to go through and have him spend money to come up with it. He did give us a site plan, et cetera, but it was hand-drawn. So we've been working with applicants to try to promote businesses in this town and to allow people to do things that are allowed by the ordinance. And I'm on the ordinance review committee, and there's people on there, which I will disagree with them. They say, if it's my property, I ought to be able to do whatever I want on it. Well, we have a zoning ordinance. And nobody gives a darn about the zoning ordinance until it affects them personally. Then they're very excited. And that's my personal experience over since 2008 on the planning board. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't think the planning board is doing everything 100% perfectly. That's not the case. I do think we're trying to work with applicants, and we're trying to be impartial and not show any favoritism to a particular applicant. And I also, don't take offense, well, you can if you want, I will. But remember, I did personally try three times I'm saying, to get the conditional zoning, contract zoning change. That isn't done. Actually, the ordinance review committee voted to recommend eliminating that. Whether they change whether that changes or not before the voting, before it goes to the voters, not, I don't know. But there's issues that come up. We're trying to work on it. I think Lindsay has raised some valid points. We need to take a look at what we're doing, make sure we're doing it properly, but I can assure you that from my perspective, the planning board is trying to do things right in accordance with the ordinance. And if we screw up, then you should say something about it. If you want to second guess everything, you can say something, but it's going to be a problem for me personally. But we're trying to do the best we can. That's all I can say. And the ordinance is not going to get changed easily, so we're going to have to live with it for quite a long time, I'm afraid. That's my, I guess I've given my sermon.
Yeah, I just, I agree. I think, being on the planning board is a lot of hard work, and, you're gonna run into difficult situations and have to have difficult conversations, and you're kind of, your hands are tied sometimes when it comes to the ordinance, so I just want to make sure, like Amber said, that there's a process and everybody goes through the same process and they're all treated the same, and, I'm not picking on the board because what's done is done. I'm just recognizing some patterns that I think the key takeaway is how do we make it better. And so one of my recommendations would be that all the planning board members attend the MMA local planning boards and boards of appeals workshop that they offer. Some of them, a lot of times they're offered through a webinar, so you can just do it at home. Sometimes they offer them in Augusta if you want to go in person. But I would recommend strongly that all the planning board members attend that training because the laws change and things change. And I've been to that workshop myself, and it's been incredibly informational. And I would also recommend that all the members, and some have already done this, but it's required by law to complete FOA training. Some of them have already, I think Joe's turned in his. So those that haven't done that yet should comply with that.
Is there a statute of limitations on that? I did that so long ago, I can't remember.
So
we decided to recertify, Don.
Huh?
You can recertify.
You have to do it every time you're sworn in.
I've been sworn, I don't think I've been sworn in the last year.
No, you do it after you're sworn in.
Sworn in.
He's sworn, but.
The last thing I would ask or recommend to the planning board is that, you come up with a procedure or a checklist so that every time you have something to go by. And I know there's stuff in the zoning ordinance, but maybe it needs to be a little more specified. So maybe it's, okay, is the application complete? Did they request a waiver? Did this, does it fall under that? And I think if the planning board, I would let the planning board come up with their own checklist.
Could I just say that I didn't send this to the other planning board members, maybe I should have, but I did send a draft, this is not just recently, but it's, I don't know how long it's been, a month or so, to a draft checklist for site plan reviews to, let's see, what is she now? I guess she's the planning board clerk. That, I sent that to the planning board, so I'm just being. But anyway, it's a checklist. It says, here's what we can do. I want to get the title right. See, that's okay. But anyhow, So, and we've also changed the bylaws to try to codify their, these notification requirements because it's sort of a mess, really. It is a mess. It's not, you know, and so we're trying to look at that and put those in the bylaws, at least the notification requirements, so that we're consistent in notifying people. We don't make a mistake because we've gone to court in the past because people, even though we sent it out within the required timeline, there was a question about whether the notices were received on time. So instead of going 10 days ahead, we're recommending going 20 days ahead by certified mail. So anyway, but there is actually a checklist. Julie has a checklist for site plan reviews, and it could be, I'll ask her to, we'll bring it up for the planning board to look at. Maybe there's a way it can be improved along that lines. Anyway, so, but I think it's not a bad idea. It's a good idea. Good idea. But I did think of ahead of you, but that's okay.
Well, you're smart like that.
No, I'm not. No, I'm getting old. By a minute.
You're also the only planning board on that workshop. right?
So in conclusion.
Yeah, I went to that workshop.
So
Let me say one other thing about the workshop. I went up to the one in Portland, and I really only had one question about it. And it was, I said, what these schools? I said, where did our conditions, we have 16 standards we go through for site plan review, and I've always wondered where they came from. They don't know. There is, I mean, they're not coming, and I looked at actually, no offense, but I looked at Parsonsville. And Parsonsville has a pretty darn good set of ordinances, I think, but their standard is different from ours, you know?
Well, and so we utilized a checklist. And we went right down, like, every single time we reviewed an application, it was like, is the application complete?
They've got that checklist.
But I mean, some of these things you've missed because it's not on that checklist. So I think the planning board could come up with their own procedure so that we try not, and you're not gonna get it right every time. But, you know, make best effort to move forward and try. And so I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stay away. No, I'm doing the best I can.
Who's more talking?
So I'm good with it, unless you guys want to talk about it more.
No, I just think in concluding, I think, you know, there's issues on both sides, and the working relationship, I think, is warranted. A better working relationship, an informative working relationship, giving, you know, as we always say, knowledge is power. If we have knowledge of these, like the report and other things, and if you communicate with our town manager, it will be much better for us. And once again, give it a chance. That's all I have to say about that.
Thankfully.
And you got the preacher
Right, we're all done with that.
More.
All right.
Now we're going.
Now we're going to executive session.
Then you're gonna do it.
Where are we going? Yeah.
A few of them.
It shouldn't take.
No, turn into a pumpkin at 9:05.
All right, I make a motion to go into executive session.
Oh, never mind, sorry, yeah.
MRSA 405A, discussion with town manager regarding personnel matters, and MRSA 405C, discussion regarding the condition or acquisition of real property. Same.
You guys talk about anything afterwards? Make
No,
any votes, decisions?
to adjourn.
And thank you for the discussion.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you for your participation.
Oh, second that.
Good fun, Dawn.
The meeting started 4 minutes ago. I was slowly, wonder how they're making out.
They don't have a goalie in there.
Wonder how they're making
I was
out.
left without you, I'll be up there.
No, please don't leave without me. I don't want to walk home.
I'll give you a ride.
Oh, yes, okay. Well, if you want to go, Vicky, you'll give me a ride. Okay.
Motion to go into executive session.
I'll start
Oh,
tomorrow,
yeah.
though.
Second.
Yes, warm my seat up for me.
Yeah.
Your heat warmers
Okay, all in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Go into executive session.
All right. Thank you.
It's okay, we're good, we got this. We can rally.
Is this thing empty?
I got my kid home.